121. Have you finished packing for me? Bronia finally refused to sign the contract and turned down the company's offer. She chose instead to rely on her own strength to lead Jarilo 6 toward a brighter future, convinced that one day Jarilo would be restored to how it was before the Stellaron's arrival. Guided by Stella, Bai Luan toured the museum she ran. Although it had only recently opened, Stella had already managed it well. In many ways, she seemed like an all-round superhero. Could he trick her into working for him later? He wondered what he might invent to tempt her. A transforming trash can robot, perhaps? The museum displayed artifacts tracing Belobog's development, ice-sculpted models of Void Rangers, portraits of past Supreme Guardians, one of whom had even earned the nickname the Fool, and more modern relics, including perfect replicas of Stella's flame-woven lance and her baseball bat. There were also two newer papers, a list of materials and a contract. Both concerned him. It appeared he was about to be written into Belobog's history. Stella, acting as guide, proudly showed Bai Luan those two pieces of paper first. Leading the creator of historical artifacts to his own exhibits was frankly delightful for her. Bai Luan examined the contract, sealed and displayed behind glass. So this was what it felt like to have your own things in a museum. Visiting at different times would surely feel different. After the contract, Stella led him to the material list. Bai Luan wasn't the only one examining it. Topaz, freshly rejected by Bronia, stood nearby studying the same sheet, Numby yawning on her shoulder. She frowned as she rechecked the list. The materials, no matter how she looked at them, didn't seem sufficient to repair the engine of creation, did they? Topaz! Numby! You came to visit the museum too. Stella called from a distance. What a coincidence, Stella, Topaz replied. We've bumped into each other a lot today. Then Topaz saw Bai Luan. Mr. Bai Luan, I wanted to ask you about this list. Before she finished, Bai Luan, standing behind Stella, put his index finger to his lips in a gentle shush. He meant, don't spoil it if you've already figured it out. Topaz read him and smiled. This genius was intriguing. Topaz, what were you going to ask? Why did you stop? What's wrong with this list? Stella prodded. Nothing, Topaz said, smiling. I just find this list very interesting. Interesting? Stella peered at the sheet but couldn't see what was so special about it. Seeing her puzzled expression made both Bai Luan and Topaz beam, the shared pleasure of holding a riddle. I have other places to visit. I'll go ahead, Topaz said, waving and moving on to another exhibit. Stella scratched her head, baffled. She looked at Bai Luan. Uncle, do you also find this list interesting? Yes, Bai Luan admitted, stifling a laugh. Very interesting. Stella's face twisted into a wholly incredulous look. Was it her imagination? Why did no part of the list seem interesting to her? For the rest of the tour, she was distracted, trying to guess what could possibly be special about a list of materials. Even after they'd finished the round, she still hadn't worked it out. Finally, seeing her pitiful state, Bai Luan told her what made the list intriguing. Once he explained it, Stella couldn't deny it. The list became interesting in an instant. She then asked March 7th the same question and happily watched March 7th work through the same realization. Aha, she thought. Stop staring at me all the time. You precious one. There's potential here. Soon the Anywhere door's cooldown finished. Stella wrapped up the remaining handover tasks and gladly became a hands-off manager. Bai Luan used the Anywhere door to take March 7th and Stella back to the space station. As soon as March 7th stepped through, she went straight to the coordinates of the Inspiration Shroom. She'd missed it. Stella went to Heita's office to test the Simulated Universe DLC. She took to it quickly and started learning the new mechanics of the swarm disaster simulation. Stella cleared Difficulty I very easy, Difficulty 2, giggling, Difficulty 3, overjoyed, Difficulty 4, brows furrowed, Difficulty 5, silent. Swarm disaster Difficulty 5 had tormented him in a past life. Now he suspected it would give Stella a hard time. Later updates and numerical inflation had softened it into something like a roadside mob players could easily beat, but at release it had been brutal, and here it wasn't just a game. Bai Luan had localized a bunch of old memes from his previous life and worked them into in-game events. He invented a purebred knight who loved to dance, rising with the rooster each morning to dance. Before rigorous training, he'd first remove his armor and offer a unique dance to the Aeon of Beauty, even if the aeon was absent. That was the bit about the peak witnesses' false allegiance, the twilight witnesses' devout believers. That event required carrying the basketball curio to trigger, an amusing little touch. He couldn't imagine what he'd have become if he hadn't had these playful outlets while designing the simulated universe. After running the simulation, Heita watched Stella test it and finally got a stretch of genuine rest. Bai Luan felt content, like 3 little holidays tacked together. He planned to find somewhere comfortable to lie down, but everywhere he went, he felt watched. It seemed people were talking about him across the station. Strange. Had he done something recently? Had anything happened on the space station? He opened the old detective group chat, now mostly a gossip forum, and was greeted by a flood of messages. Slacking data analyst. I know Yimu's true identity. The station master is Yimu. Bai Luan recognized the ID, the one persistent staffer still digging into Yimu. Gossip collector. Huh? Station master Asta. Didn't we rule that out ages ago? No, it's the old station master. That's not right. Didn't we confirm Yimu is female? Haven't you seen the news certification on Yimu's account? Genius Society number 85. Drama series specialist. Really? I'll check. It's true. Collector, what does Yimu being Genius Society number 85 have to do with the station master? Buddy, how did you even get onto the space station? Collector, slacking data analyst. I'm asking because I don't know. Use your brain. Besides the old station master, who else on the space station could become a new member of the Genius Society? Frontline gossip. And that's not all. The accounts Yimu, Kukorinst, and Ball are actually the same person. They all got the Genius Society number 85 certification added. It's trending. Wait, so the songs I listen to, the games I play, my cyber pickles are all from one person? Why do I feel powerless, like discovering all famous works were written by the same author? It's both absurd and plausible. Slacker. That's just how geniuses are. Slacking data analyst. It really took a big detour. Huh? I finally found Yimu's true identity. Bai Luan watched the messages pour in. No, he'd only gone to take a breather, and somehow they'd already boxed him. P.S. People often ask why Bai Luan's identity as Genius Society in 85 wasn't known across the universe when he was glimpsed. Here's why. In Heita's manuscript author's preface, and in the Genius Society chapter, the book Heita was paid to write but lost interest in halfway through, scattering the manuscript around the space station, it's made clear that the Genius Society keeps its own rules and rarely shares its discoveries with outsiders. The author described it as the most mysterious, transcendent, and inexplicable organization in the universe, and said its members hardly communicate with each other. From that, you can see how little the outside world knows. If a genius doesn't actively reveal themselves, nobody will notice a new member has been added. Today's Honkaiologist segment ends here. 122. This is called professionalism. That lazy staff data analyst turned out to be quite a character. Through sheer persistence, he'd managed to make Bai Luan remember him, a rare feat. If there were ever an evaluation of who could stick with something and grind it out, that kid should be near the top of the list. Bai Luan logged into his account and saw the small tag next to his name, Genius Society number 85. All 3 of his accounts showed the same certification. The company was clearly trying to ride the publicity. Fine. Now the whole universe knew the Genius Society had a new member. Bai Luan scratched his head. His 3 aliases were out in the open. What to do? He decided on inaction. Better to control the story where he had presence. He opened the space station and posted in the official work group. I have a side hustle, nothing unusual. Don't let this affect your daily life and work. The stares didn't abate. If you keep staring at me, I'll deduct your performance points. That did the trick. The feeling of being watched eased. A little threat went a long way. You've been making a lot of noise lately, huh? The whole universe knows. How's Firefly doing? Any after effects? No, she can pilot a SAM mech now, but otherwise she's normal. Thanks for what you did for her. You do good deeds sometimes. Sometimes, I'm always doing good deeds. Even deleting my account? You brought that on yourself. Let's not get into that. When's the new game coming out? We agreed. You're not backing out, are you? At the mention, a distant memory pricked at Bai Luan. After he'd returned from Logos, he'd been busy and had let this slip to the back burner. Would you believe me if I said I forgot? I take it back. Make me a game. Don't worry, I happen to have some free time. A good game takes time to polish. Can you really make something like this? Bai Luan frowned. True, games with very short or very long development cycles often fail. Short ones lack polish, long ones get lost in their creators' egos. But he wasn't exactly inventing a game from scratch. He'd be adapting one. Don't worry. My games are all stolen from other worlds. Each one carries the hard work of real dev teams. Are you humoring me like I'm a child? Ha! I knew it. No one believes the truth. Bai Luan gave up on arguing. Making up lies takes effort too. Just wait. You'll see. He put his phone down. If he was going to do this, he might as well make Cyberpunk 2077. To some planets in the Honkai Star Rail world, that title would be ancient history. To others, it would be unheard of. Youth and curiosity meant there'd always be an audience. He had to find a way to recreate the vibe, and the first detail was important. Get Jimmy to say, "Good morning, Night City." Authenticity was the main goal. Player reception wasn't something he could control. When no one in the universe wanted the games he brought over anymore, he'd stop. But he didn't think that day had come. He'd enjoy the present. Just as he stood to start work, his phone pinged again. Robin, Senior, the Penacony Grand event is coming up. Would you like to attend? Are you free? Of course, they all showed up the moment he had time. He couldn't help but grumble, then think. Penacony had film experience. He could use that to recreate classics from his old life. Animated films with story tacked on. Disney. If he were to bring something, Wall-E would be the first. It was the best robot movie he'd ever seen. If films could be remade, anime could too. There were so many works he wanted to import into the Honkai Star Rail world. He wanted a universe that got his memes. Old Yang might even be an animator. He'd ask later. Decision made, he was going to Penacony. Okay, there's been a lot of buzz about you lately. I thought you might be busy. Minor matters. By the way, for the Penacony event, I've got a song that fits perfectly. It's for you. Really? Wait a moment. I'll send a sample. Robin waited, worrying a little. If Senior Songblight had written it on the spot, that might not suit the event. It would be charming, but not necessarily promotional. She had to be fair. If it didn't fit, she'd have to politely decline. No favoritism. Bai Luan quickly finished the sample and sent it. Silence stretched. He began to fret. Had he practiced too little in the little black room? Was his singing off? He'd practiced until Heita nodded before recording. Robin, Senior, anything to revise? I just wanted to ask, why is the song so short? Why didn't you make it longer? He'd had the same reaction the first time he heard it. Oh my, ice! Then played it over and over for 2 weeks. How to explain? Say the original is short and the vibe matters more. He considered and then typed a string of apparently professional rationales. Given its role as a promotional piece and today's fast pace, length was a concession. Sometimes art must break convention. It sounded thoughtful and deliberate. Robin bought it. If anyone else had said that, she'd think they were bluffing. But Songblight, Genius Society number 85, had authority and the air of inscrutability. She pictured him as profound and thorough, as expected. This, she thought, was professionalism. 123. A little moved. Although Robin had already sent an invitation to Bai Luan, there was still plenty of time before the Penacony Grand event actually began. Robin and Bai Luan briefly talked over the soundtrack for Sleepless Night before Robin went off to perfect it. The demo Bai Luan had provided was already excellent, and with Robin's harmonious music blessing, it was bound to reach a new level. It would probably obsess fans for a long time. All right, now he could seriously get back to making games. It had been a while since his last update. This was the perfect opportunity. The Chi Kiren, Music Stealer, and BL accounts were both buzzing, but the Yimu account was completely quiet. Was he being a little biased? He'd worry about that later. Finish what you're doing first. Little black room, activate. Let's make games. With the little black room working at full tilt, Bai Luan quickly upgraded and assembled a Cyberpunk 2077 built on Honkai Star Rail tech. He even had time to whip up an Undertale remake and planned to release them together. If people tired of Cyberpunk, they could go cleanse their souls with Undertale. Unless you picked the genocide route, in which case, ignore that last sentence. Finished with the releases, he then hunted down Silverwolf's account and sent a short, triumphant message. Bai Luan, Silverwolf. Bai Luan, don't owe you anymore. After hitting send, he felt a wave of relief. He'd been grinding for almost a week. Robin had finished releasing Sleepless Night 3 days ago. Fans of the Cheek Ren account, a very cohesive crowd, flooded the comments, praising Robin as the god of updates and raving about the exquisite soundtrack, saying it carried the whole show. When people switched over to Bai Luan's own account, the mood changed drastically. The comments under his posts were a bonkers, creative torrent of update requests. Shamans, necromancers, those rejoicing over returned missing persons, people wailing about children starving to death, withdrawal sufferers, all kinds of deities showing off their powers. Some even invented tragic love stories that reduced onlookers to tears, only to swerve to the same blunt conclusion. Update! Bai Luan stared at the flood of pleas and cracked a smile. Okay, you're really going all out. At least you have something to watch. The Yi Mu account hasn't even made a peep. That line nagged at him. It was a little unfair. What exactly could the Yi Mu account post? A lifestyle account that only showed his face? That didn't seem like much, but showing his face wouldn't be terrible. Followers had been around long enough that they probably already knew what he looked like. His alias on the space station had been exposed. Sooner or later, someone would post a picture. Better he get ahead of it than let them do it for him. Eventually, he planned to rope March 7th into something absurd, maybe a Gangnam-style dance. But dancing alone wouldn't be enough. It had to be combined with JoJo-style theatrics for maximum effect. Some things only worked when the conditions were right. For now, though, what should his first appearance be? A dance with beat-synced edits was tempting but painful to edit after a week of non-stop work. How about just playing and singing with a guitar? If he didn't mess up, he wouldn't need heavy editing. The AI could handle subtitles, he'd only need to proofread them. He could even drop a new song and kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Decided, Bai Luan went to the space station to find a guitar. No luck, so he built one. Curio, acoustic guitar. When played while singing, it adds a touch of charm. The Curio's effect was nothing dramatic. It was more like a small, pleasant buff. Bai Luan didn't expect miracles from something he'd thrown together casually. Guitar in hand, he retreated to the little black room to practice until he was satisfied, then record outside. What to sing? Love Message would be simple enough. He tuned the guitar, strummed a few chords, and soon the mellow melody and light humming filled the little black room. So what if I get used to this frequency? Perhaps love isn't a perfect melody. If I can, it's okay to be a little willful sometimes. Heita, absorbed in another research project, heard the tune drift through her workspace. She paused, set down her notes, and followed the sound. As she drew closer, she caught the next lines. Then chase it. Don't let yourself give up on the decision. Every encounter has a beautiful, touching quality. Every day, the moment I open my eyes, I think of you. I want to know what secrets the raindrops outside the window are writing. Missing turns into a sigh in the air. Embrace the truest feeling in your heart. Adjust your breathing, writing that no matter how much time passes, I will wait for you. A small smile curved Heita's lips. It was almost instinctive. She felt herself connecting to the lyrics. He was clearly singing for someone. During the instrumental break, Bai Luan lowered his head, fingers running through smooth arpeggios as he hummed the melody. This song was far more relaxed than Sleepless Night. He sang easily, immersed. No matter what, people always say love can be very hurtful, but I think I'll make myself stronger. Every day when I wake up, I won't feel flustered. I want the shooting stars to grant a wish for happiness. Missing turns into a sigh in the air. How much I want to lie. Ahem. Bai Luan suddenly looked up and found Heita watching him. The fluid motion of his playing stuttered, and the next lyric trailed off. Wasn't it sung well? Why did you stop? Herta crossed her arms and regarded him. If you beg me, maybe I can let you lie down, she added. That's just lyrics, Bai Luan protested, one hand holding the guitar while the other scratched his cheek. Please don't toy with me. This song should be sung to me, Herta said coolly. After you practice it, sing it on the space station. Make sure you pick a spot where I can hear you. Do I really have to? He asked. Of course, Herta nodded. Don't I know what I want to see? The song wasn't difficult. Bai Luan practiced quickly, then set up a camera and chose a public spot Herta passed by often. He couldn't bring himself to walk into her lab. His resistance to her was still too low. A number of people did pass by, but because he was performing, they stayed unusually quiet. He smiled at the lens. Good morning, everyone. A little song. He strummed, sang, and managed the whole thing in one take. If Herta had been standing there, he might have choked on the last line, but she wasn't. When the final note faded, he set the guitar down and gave the camera a two-finger salute. Bye. After a quick check, he uploaded the video to Yimu. He realized, watching the onlookers on the space station, that while he was singing, everyone had been silent and respectful. Many of the female staff had little hearts in their eyes. Curio charm plus model-like numerical oddity, ordinary people were simply vulnerable to that combination. System power, indeed. He didn't notice Asta in the crowd. Asta, spotting the new upload, immediately began strafing Herta's messages with the video. Miss Herta, please watch this. Station Master is singing a love song to you in the middle of the space station. Herta's phone started buzzing. She glanced at Asta's messages. Her assistant had spammed her with clips and frantic remarks. Curiosity got the better of her. She tapped the video. Good morning, everyone. A little song. When she realized it was Bai Luan's face, Herta felt a little more tolerant. This was the first time he'd revealed his face since creating those 3 accounts, after all. She let the melody wash over her, and a faint smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. If she'd known he was performing outside, she might have gone out. A pity. Herta opened the comment section. Yimu is a guy? Then who was the voice in the last video? An insider quietly tells you that was actually the voice of a peculiar creature on Herta space station. Mom, I'm in love. What a magnificent face, what terrifying destructive power. No, dude, he's a genius. Makes games, sings, cooks. How are you so overpowered? Damn it! Now I have to admit this guy is handsomer than me. The thread exploded with replies, teasing and adoration. Herta scrolled, amused. Hundreds of declarations, direct or coy, filled her screen. She was surprised. Her assistant's charm apparently ran higher than she'd expected. Then she noticed a comment from Bai Luan himself. Thank you all, but please stop confessing to me. I have someone I like, love you all, but not that kind of love. Herta paused on that line. A quiet, very real smile bloomed in her eyes. Her assistant was unexpectedly thoughtful. He had, in a small way, made her heart flutter. All right, all 3 accounts have been updated, fair and square. Now I can lean back in my recliner and watch netizens make fools of themselves in the comments. But when Bai Luan opened Yimu's comment section, it was nothing but people obsessing over her looks, begging to see her face and confessing love. I don't want to see that. Give me fresh chaos. Bai Luan opened the comments and edited his pinned reply. Thanks, everyone, but please stop confessing to me. I already like someone. Love you all, just not that kind of love. Replies exploded instantly. Mom, I'm heartbroken. Love really does come and go quickly. Why did you have to be so direct? I failed both the don't fall in love and don't get heartbroken challenges in under 30 seconds. A glorious double fail. At Yimu, look how sad they are. Aren't you going to release a new song to comfort them? Genius. The person above is a trend starter. At Yimu. Someone called the trend starter a genius, and that single tag triggered a flood. Everyone started urging updates. Take in. Bai Luan thought for a moment, then replied to that original commenter. Then what are we waiting for? I'll drop a song to comfort you all. Really? A new scripture for urging updates has appeared. Write it down. Quick, write it down. This is how we'll urge next time. So this is the right way to urge updates. Bai Luan decided to sing, not out of a sudden soft heart, but because he had the perfect song to console them. He smiled to himself. The next day, the plagiarist released a new track. Decent. All right, so this is how you comfort us, huh? The lyrics talk about parting amicably, about the pain of breaking up, but with the current situation, Yimu, you're impossible. What a comfort-giving genius. You're all playing along. I'm the real clown. I actually broke up. Are you really crying? Let me see, tilts head. Perfect. I'll sing it for you. Breakups should be decent. You've mastered the art of flexible application. Bai Luan grinned at the playful comments. Exactly what he wanted. After scrolling for a while, he put his phone away and noticed Star leaning against the window of the space station, looking totally empty. Her face had a rare blankness, a bewildered, hollow expression, like someone whose soul had been briefly extracted. That wasn't Star's usual look. Had Heita scolded her? Bai Luan walked over and patted her shoulder. Star turned, eyes a little unfocused. Uncle, you're testing the simulated universe, right? Why the empty face? Didn't you clear difficulty 5 yet? If you just figure out the mechanics, Bai Luan began, ready to hand out tips from a past life. No, Uncle. Star shook her head. I cleared difficulty 5. Then why do you look like that? It's just coming back to reality after the simulated universe. The contrast is so big. Star stared at the river of stars outside the porthole. It's like my body has been hollowed out. So that was it. Bai Luan had worried she was depressed because she couldn't clear it. Next time he'd have to increase the difficulty for Star. Keeps them healthy, he'd always said. Still, he couldn't leave her like this, so he pulled out his ultimate move. But filming videos lets you openly dive into trash content, he said. Star's head snapped up, eyes bright. She grabbed his hand. Let's plan it. Okay, in a bit. Let go. Why are you squeezing so hard? Bai Luan yanked his hand back. This kid had a grip of steel. To dive into trash content, though, you needed at least some dance skills. First, see if Star had any talent for dancing. Bai Luan taught her a set of shaking moves just to test the waters. It turned out Star was a natural, a prodigy of the shaking dance. Her movements were fluid, her timing with the music precise, her expressiveness perfectly balanced, and she even had an instinctive sense of comedic timing. Incredible. Bai Luan felt he'd discovered a true shaking genius and decided he had to cultivate her. As she learned, Star began to feel the joy of dancing. It released something in her. Bai Luan dug out the pixelated sunglasses he'd made ages ago and put them on her. The moment Star slipped them on, she unconsciously smirked and struck a pose she thought was cool. Yes, that's it. The vibe is perfect. I haven't even taught you everything, and you're already a master. Bai Luan clapped. He patted her shoulder and laid out the plan. Uncle is going to take you to torment everyone in the universe. Huh? Really? Not that kind of torment, more like spiritual baptism and entertainment. Bai Luan tried to explain. Star didn't fully get it, but she nodded. But Uncle would never hurt me. After a quick lesson, Bai Luan queued up DJ dance tracks. Can't afford to be hurt, free and easy, fragrance of wildflowers. He danced with Star, then went straight into editing. Saturated reds and greens, flashing disco balls, meaningless but dazzling light effects. The aesthetic was intentionally over the top, deliberately tacky and somehow trendy. Normally, he procrastinated on editing everyday videos, but for these chaotic clips, he attacked the work with energy. When the finished product was ready, he showed it to Star. She watched once and collapsed into hysterical laughter. She felt Uncle had led her to create something new and cutting edge. Amazing! Uncle, this is a masterpiece. They high-fived, but Bai Luan still wasn't sure how the wider public would react to such an avant-garde style. He needed a test audience. The first victim, March 7th. March 7th watched, and then silence fell for 10 seconds. Her face read utterly stunned. Put the visual madness and brainwashing DJ beats aside. Bai Luan and Star's movements, the energy and timing, were actually top tier. But the way it all combined made March 7th feel something odd. She thought the visuals were absurd. She felt mentally polluted, yet she couldn't look away and even found herself wanting to watch again. She held that tangled feeling in for a long time, then finally posted a strained comment. You guys did it pretty well. Too cool. I'm posting it online right now. Hey, wait. March 7th stopped them. Bai Luan's finger hovered over the upload button. She looked at the two overeager artists, expression complicated, and asked from the bottom of her heart, in this universe, is there no one you two care about anymore? She was trying to snap them back to some sense of restraint. Star and Bai Luan exchanged a look. Their gazes became crisp and determined. They both reached the same conclusion in a flash. We must team up, give the whole universe a proper show. Under March 7th's helpless stare, Bai Luan's finger moved and pressed upload. 125. You have to believe in my aesthetics. The viral video Bai Luan made with Star hit the fans of the Yimu account like a runaway truck full of chaos. People who still adored him as the little prince of love songs blinked in disbelief. In his last update, he'd been serenely strumming a guitar. Now he was wearing pixelated sunglasses, grinning wickedly, and dragging a gray-haired girl out of a giant trash bin to wildly groove to ear-splitting DJ music. At first, many thought they'd clicked the wrong account. It took a few repeats of the username for the truth to sink in. Fans erupted. This Yimu is not a decent person. Star Network is unreal. You can even see Genius Society members dancing. Remember today, Yimu finally shed all his disguises and revealed his abstract inner self. It began with a good morning, then sunglasses, then the BGM hit, and he pulled that trailblazer out to just start shaking, knocked me back 3 meters. Setting aside the visuals and the soundtrack, the choreography is actually razor sharp and in perfect sync. They both have insane body control. If they did this seriously, it would be beautiful. But they deliberately chose the most ridiculous way to dance. Yimu, what are you doing with that handsome face? They're completely lost in their own artistic world. Everyone calls it abstract, but as soon as it went live, the views exploded. People keep rewatching it. Netizens are sundry. Me? I'm honest. Go wild. Post more. The kids love it. They even blink and sync and make faces. I can't, haha, I'm dead. Mortals rack their brains, but a talent monster tosses this out casually. Yimu, are you even a genius at being abstract? This is beyond critique. This is pure talent. Star laughed at the comment section until she had to wipe tears of mirth away. The empty feeling she'd had about the simulated universe evaporated and was replaced by the simple, giddy joy of making something viral. But amusement turned quickly to a cold little prickle of annoyance. What about the trash can she'd been promised she could explore openly? Had her uncle tricked her into joining him? Making videos was fun, but he shouldn't lie, especially about her beloved trash cans. So Star went to Bai Luan for a straight answer. Don't rush, he told her. We take this step by step. Bai Luan had a plan. In the old world, viral content had evolved through several stages. The early phase of extreme shock content, a mid-phase of technically impressive pieces, and finally the modern era where tech and storytelling combined. The video with Star had its absurdity and charm, but its technical depth was lacking. He intended to cover that evolution in 3 videos, a decade of internet trends compressed into a trilogy. First, he custom-made a large trash can in Star's favorite style. She chose a Bellobog trash can. She still loved them. They paired it with a DJ dance set to Still Miss You. The dim streetlights can't light the whole road. No matter how I try, I can't reach your heart. Rain fell all night. We're so close, yet you can't see my tears. I know I can be replaced at any time, but I can't accept this disparity. Our love is like a falling meteor. After that little lyrical peak, the technical filming began. Smooth, seamless camera moves, scene transitions that told stories, handsome close-ups, flashback inserts, and choreography that stuck in your head. The production value elevated the absurd concept into something oddly cinematic. Bai Luan grinned through the whole shoot. He was enjoying delivering content to his fans. Star was delighted too. She finally got to explore the trash can she loved. The child grinned like a kid in a candy shop. Bai Luan released the video. Silver Wolf had just finished Jackie's questline in Cyberpunk 2077 and logged out to take a breather. Jackie inserting the chip kept looping in her head. Vodka on the rocks, lime, ginger beer, and a little love, huh? A helpless smile tugged at her lips. She wondered who could make a game feel so much like home despite never having been to her hometown. BL? A missing legend from Punklord? She put the thought aside and decided to watch some short videos to unwind. The first clip she saw was a giant Bellobog trash can. The lid slammed open, and Star popped out with a pure, ridiculous grin. The BGM hit, and she launched into the routine. Silver Wolf paused on that first frame and kept dragging the progress bar back to watch Star emerge. Every time Star's smile landed precisely on that same beat, it hit a funny bone inside her. She laughed, sent the clip to Kafka, and left a voice message between chuckles. Kafka, you're going to love this. Fan reactions kept pouring in across platforms. Yimu, you're invincible. Who taught you to make viral videos like this? I can't. This camera work, these moves, these close-ups, I've watched it a dozen times. What did you put in this video? I'm asking. What did you put in this video? I'm dying. At the end, the camera suddenly turns to Yimu singing so earnestly, and it broke me, so the BGM was sung live. Did anyone else notice Star's smile? It's so pure, no greed, just the joy of making art. But why the trash can? You can accept the abstract and still be bothered by the trash can? That's the least of it. If that's a new song, release it now. Yimu's grasp of abstract videos is unmatched. On the interstellar stage, abstract if you dare. For Star, the main thing was she had fun dancing and finally got into the trash can she'd been longing to explore. Tormenting Yimu's fans was just a delightful side effect. Uncle, the second stage is already like this, she said. I can't imagine what the third stage will be. Bai Luan considered it. We should slow down for the third stage. Do something cool to salvage our image. Star blinked. Uncle, do we still have an image? What matters isn't salvaging our image, he said. It's controlling the fans' aesthetic threshold. She asked, puzzled. What do you mean? If we keep doing abstract stuff, we'll keep raising our fans' expectations. Eventually, this level won't satisfy them anymore and will spiral into ever stranger territory, he explained patiently. To avoid that internal escalation, we have to be normal sometimes, then pull off something genuinely amazing. That resets their aesthetic baseline and keeps our brand of elegant abstraction sustainable. Star's expression cleared a little. I don't get it. If you don't, just trust me, he said. She nodded like a child who'd understood enough. Now I do. Bai Luan couldn't help a tease. Use your brain a bit. It's not like you don't have one. Why should I when I have you? You won't hurt me. It was a soft thing to say. Bai Luan hid his small warmth. He produced a black commander's uniform and handed it to her. Change into this. I'm going to find March 7th to take a set of cool photos for you. Star took the uniform, curious. Where did these come from? Of course I made them, he said, giving her a thumbs up. You have to believe in Uncle's aesthetics. The next day, a carefully edited transformation video landed on the Star network. It was ridiculous and brilliant. One moment Star was dancing goofily, the next she snapped into a stern-eyed military princess. Close-ups of her holding a gun, a cold, condescending executioner vantage point, a handful of sharp stills stitched together turned her into a dangerous, magnetic figure, almost like a Stellaron hunter. People loved how cool she looked, but the comments were full of question marks. Why? Because right above it on her feed was a video of Star being utterly ridiculous. You made yourself this awesome. Aren't you afraid of death? We agreed to be abstract together, so why did you suddenly get cool behind our backs? Wow, that outfit is amazing. Where can I get one? She looks villainous. It doesn't look like she's here to explore. She's here to colonize. The netizens ate it up, but getting the footage hadn't been easy. The problem was Star's timing. She burst into laughter at the worst possible moments. Whenever the camera turned on, her silly Stellaron essence peeked through. If a serious, uniformed Star read as an austere military princess, the instant she smiled, she instantly downgraded to a college kid cosplaying one for fun. The effect was ruined. March 7th, and Bai Luan tried every trick to keep her straight-faced, but their methods only made her laugh harder. Eventually, Star began cracking up every time she saw Bai Luan's face, so he had to wear a cyber mask during filming to maintain the illusion. They pulled out all the stops for the transformation clip, and fortunately, the final cut was excellent. Maybe Kafka would watch it and get a sudden pang of déjà vu. It's like an old friend has come back. Who could say? Never mind that. The audience mattered most. Just when viewers had accepted this new badass image, the Yimu account dropped another clip titled, Good Night, My Lady. March 7th played the young lady, showing her face only briefly. Convincing her to appear required all of Bai Luan's pleading. Star and Bai Luan played the two butlers. The short pushed goofing off into new territory. It kept the addictive, brainwashing quality of their previous work while adding a first-person perspective and driving a nonsensical plot with lyrics. Content creators across the Star Network suddenly saw goofing off as immersive, interactive entertainment. Today, just today, a woman and a man wormed their way into my head by sheer abstraction. Yar yar, momalinin agashi, unstoppable young lady. Promise you'll goof off forever, okay? Where will I find this fun without you? If I don't watch it for a day, I feel weird. If I do, I feel weird all day. Why do I keep coming back for no reason? I swear I don't want to anymore. You don't actually not want to watch. But Yimu's streak of goofy shorts had to pause, at least temporarily. Not because Bai Luan had run out of ideas. There were plenty of sketches left to try, from sitting killing gamblers to the shoulder dance, but because Heita called him away. March 7th watched Bai Luan's back and, with a mischievous grin, turned to Star. When do you think they'll make it official? I hope it's later, Star said. If Uncle makes it official, he won't be able to play with me like this anymore. Then you won't be able to tease him by calling him Uncle either, March 7th said. That's what I'm really worried about. Star chuckled. It looks like filming will be on hold for a while. What should we do instead? I got a weird text from someone named Loki, Star said. I'm going to go ask about it. I'll come, March 7th said. I don't have anything else to do. She stretched. She'd been living on the space station and eating too well. She needed ways to burn calories or she'd end up fat. Bai Luan, meanwhile, walked into Heita's office. Her message hadn't explained why she wanted him, only asked him to come. Miss Heita, do you need me for something? He asked. Nothing urgent, she said. The simulated universe matter has just concluded, so we can go back to the business we were discussing before. Previous business? Bai Luan frowned. He couldn't remember any unfinished matter Heita had abruptly left pending. What's wrong? Heita raised an eyebrow and let the corner of her mouth curl. Did you forget something involving me? The question made Bai Luan break out in a cold sweat. Think, brain. What could he have forgotten? He was about to retreat into the little black room to run a mental review when Heita chuckled and continued. All right, I won't tease you. Do you remember I promised you a reward? Oh, that. Didn't I already get one? That didn't count. I thought it did, and honestly, I don't want anything else. Heita cut him off. If I say it doesn't count, it doesn't count. She closed the distance and said, Think carefully. My reward is precious. You know, this genius can do anything. Is that so? Then I should choose wisely, Bai Luan said with a half-joking smile. I choose the great Miss Heita. Heita froze for a heartbeat, then laughed. Who picks the person giving the gift as the gift? You've gotten bolder lately. You even joke with me now. Because I really don't want anything. Keeping my life as it is reward enough. Maybe we should wait until I've truly thought about it. Stand still. Bai Luan obliged, puzzled. Heita moved behind him. His mind supplied the worst possibilities, she wouldn't be, before he felt her arms slide around him in a warm hug. His whole body went rigid. Despite his growing resistance to Heita's charms, the sensation was overwhelming. His brain shorted out. You did choose the most precious thing I could give, Heita murmured by his ear, laughter in her voice. But this gift isn't easy to receive. After a moment, she released him. All right, that's the reward. You can go. Okay, Bai Luan said weakly. He floated out of Heita's lab with another memory guaranteed to make him cringe every time it surfaced. You can't test a veteran cadre like that. Really, you can't. In her office, Heita replayed the hug and smiled faintly. I should have held him longer, she thought. If I had, I would have seen an even more interesting expression. After all, I also have someone I love. A chance encounter. No, not a chance encounter. He had met the incredibly powerful Miss Heita, a force like a monster. He did his best and still couldn't defeat her. Miss Heita merely used a small trick and had Bai Luan wrapped around her finger. The system's taunting complaint echoed in his head, tinged with schadenfreude. Bai Luan ignored the system's chatter and put all his effort into desensitizing himself from the unsettling memory of that embrace, a scene that kept replaying. He tried every method he could think of to cover or dilute the warmth and sensation with other thoughts, but it was useless. Heita's image had invaded and occupied his mind like a high-grade virus. The memory was going to linger. He only hoped that, during this invasion, he wouldn't say anything foolish in front of anyone, especially not Miss Heita herself. It was, he realized with a wry inward sigh, that awkward stage after discovering someone's affection, the stage where you can't help but blush. Heita had nearly turned him into a lovesick fool. If only something would come along to keep him busy and distracted. Stunkel, are you done yet? I need your help with something. Perfect. Star could be relied on in critical moments. Coordinates. I'll be right there. He found Star and March 7th together, staring at two signal translators, one red, one blue, uncertain what to do. Seeing the devices, Bai Luan quickly understood why Star had called. While he had been away, Star had been helping Staff Rocky investigate why Leslie hadn't responded for so long. The story of To the Dim Star had stuck with him. Rocky's devotion was unforgettable. Rocky, a mortal champion of pure love, dared to defy time and space. How could Bai Luan not want to help? But first he needed to help the hesitant girl standing before him. Star opened her mouth to explain, but Bai Luan beat her to it. I pretty much understand why you called me here. Star blinked in confusion. But I haven't said anything yet. Sometimes I just know things before they happen. Bai Luan's voice was calm, and he even summoned a witness. If you don't believe me, ask March 7th. March 7th thought a moment and nodded. Bai Luan did say he had that ability. Star still looked startled, as if waiting for confirmation of something impossible. Bai Luan continued. Rocky stayed at the space station. Leslie went to the abundant star zone. Leslie encountered a stellar quake that created a time difference between them, and his eyes rested on the red and blue translators in Star's hands. The choice you face now, whether or not to tell Rocky the truth. Star trembled as he summarized her dilemma in a few words. Shock shifted into relief. The prospect of making a decision that could change someone's life had terrified her. A single thought might send someone down an unforeseen path. But with Uncle here, maybe it wasn't as daunting. She sighed and said, Uncle, you're amazing. Wow, you really can predict the future. March 7th added, awed. Knowing it and seeing it are different. March 7th amended when Star looked surprised. The brief interlude passed, and the group returned to the core question, tell Rocky the truth or not. Since there are three of us, let's vote, March 7th suggested, eyes bright. Good idea, Bai Luan agreed. Choose truth, raise your left hand. Choose concealment, raise your right hand. 3, 2, 1. All three raised their left hands at once. March 7th laughed. If we'd known our opinions matched so well, we wouldn't have agonized so long. It's better to tell him the truth and let him decide. It's just that this truth is a bit cruel, Star said. Since you've chosen, go and execute it. I'll prepare something. Bai Luan smiled and left a little riddle before hurrying off. What is Uncle going to prepare? Star asked. A farewell gift. March 7th watched Bai Luan's retreating figure and murmured, do people who can predict the future always talk like that? Since Uncle said so, there must be a reason. We just need to do what we're supposed to do. Star put the blue translator into her pocket, gripped the red one, and set her face with the resolve of someone who had made a choice. Let's go. Star found Staff Rocky in his office and told him everything. The explanation fell into place. Leslie's delayed replies came not from indifference, but from a growing time difference between them. Days stretched into months, months into years, until, if nothing changed, it would become a lifetime. Rocky had imagined obstacles, status, wealth, talent, and had been ready to face them all, but he had never imagined that the obstacle between them would be time itself. To wait a lifetime for someone, enduring endless longing and loneliness. Star began. Honestly, buddy, you don't think I'm that naive, do you? Rocky interrupted with a bitter laugh. Ha! Of course I won't just wait. I won't wait. He hesitated, then corrected himself with fierce determination. I won't wait, but I am going to pursue her. I'm going to chase time. At that moment, Star and March 7th understood what Bai Luan had meant by a farewell gift. The cabin door opened and Bai Luan walked in, smiling at Rocky. Well said, he said. Station master, why are you here? Rocky asked. To bring you a gift. Catch! Bai Luan tossed a storage device to Rocky, who fumbled it into his hands and then looked up puzzled. Station master, what is this? Aren't you going to look for Leslie? Everything you need is in there. I've shown you a path. Bai Luan smiled. Perhaps you'll encounter unimaginable difficulties along it, but remember this when you face them. He paused, his voice soft and resolute. At the end of the path is the lover you are determined to chase for a lifetime. Station master, thank you. Thank you for believing I can catch up to her. Rocky's voice was raw with gratitude. Bai Luan returned the smile. Perhaps it seems naive, but I have always believed that love can conquer everything. He stepped forward, patted the champion of pure love on the shoulder, and blessed him with a warm, steady smile. I hope and believe this story will have a good ending. After all, I also have someone I've fallen in love with. Rocky left Heita space station. If he followed the path Bai Luan had placed in his hands, he would eventually meet Leslie. For two people moving toward each other, falling in love was only a matter of time. When love was the destination, all obstacles would shrink in its light. 128. Planting life on a planet. Several days had passed since Bai Luan received his reward from Heita, but he was still feeling its effects. It wasn't that Heita's move had exposed some fatal flaw and left him incapacitated. He wasn't that useless. Logically, he should have recovered long ago, but Heita had given him no time. She had been relentlessly pressing him for the past few days. Her tactic was cruel. It had exploited his weakness and temporarily lowered the resistance he'd spent so long building against her. In short, he felt weakened, back to the same state he had been in when he first realized his feelings for Heita and began interacting with her. Heita noticed and intensified her pursuit. After several straight days of that, Bai Luan finally snapped. He asked Heita for a leave of absence to get away and recuperate. She agreed. She realized she might have gone a bit too far and decided to give him some time. To clear his head, the first thing Bai Luan thought to do was use the anywhere door to go out. Perhaps it was bad luck, but he opened the door over 100 times without finding a single planet with life. Even planets with relatively good environments showed that life wouldn't appear for several hundred more years. Over 100 fruitless tries broke his composure. He had come out to change his mood, but not to get this mood. All right, fine. No life anywhere? I'll plant it myself. Grumbling, Bai Luan returned to Heita's botanical garden. He disinfected himself before entering, following the old rules. The garden had iterated many times over the centuries, but the plants retained habits almost unchanged from 900 years ago. He walked to the rose beds. He hadn't come often these days. Only occasionally, when nostalgia struck, he would open the anywhere door to check on them, loosen the soil, or treat a disease. The plants still recognized him, the gardener who rarely visited. The giant rose bushes sensed him and opened toward him like a greeting. Bai Luan stared at their blooms, lost for a moment. Over 900 years ago, he'd tended plants like these. He had wound through the chaotic flow of time and returned to the botanical garden thinking he had come home, only to realize he could return but time could not. He reached out and gently touched a cluster of roses and smiled. Your colors are still the same as they were 900 years ago. After a brief round of tending, Bai Luan got down to his real purpose. He needed seeds. But he couldn't send the garden's plants to that lifeless planet as they were. The botanical garden's species were delicate. To survive there, they'd need modification. He had learned a great deal about genetic work from Ruan Mei, so tweaking plant genomes to boost vitality wasn't difficult for him now. He would make slight edits, increase resilience, and give them a chance to grow on the barren world. If successful, the plants could jumpstart an ecosystem and accelerate evolution. So I'm a gardener overseeing a supersized botanical garden. A promotion of sorts. While the seeds were being processed, Bai Luan pulled out his phone to check messages and noticed one from Heimerdinger that he'd been ignoring. The message congratulated him on joining the Genius Society and asked if it could be used to promote the first University of Truth. He'd meant to reply, but hadn't, and Heimerdinger, once the company had added the Genius Society credential to his account, had started messaging him daily. Bai Luan found it unbearable. He hadn't expected the head of a top university to be so shameless. Best to deflect him. He typed, I am Professor Ratio's student. If Professor Ratio agrees, there's no problem. He sent it and went back to monitoring the genetic programming. Everything progressed smoothly until his phone vibrated. A vibration usually meant someone important was messaging. He picked it up. Ratio, you've joined the Genius Society? Bai Luan blinked. Had he replied to Heimerdinger that quickly? Had he run it past Professor Ratio already? Was the old man watching his account? Never mind, he composed a playful reply. Are you proud of me? Ratio. Heh, you're still the same as before. I am indeed a little pleased. A student I personally guided surpassing me. That's what every teacher hopes to see. I'm honored. But you wouldn't have used me as a shield before. Did you learn that from Heita? Professor, you're a teacher at the First University of Truth, and you are my teacher. No one has more say than you about whether that university is worth recommending. I'll leave the decision to you. If you think it's not qualified to be endorsed by a genius, I'll turn down Heimerdinger's request myself. Ratio. Do you think dressing up, passing the buck in formal language will fool me? I can't hide anything from you, Professor. Tee-hee. Fine. Consider it me grading my students' homework. Perhaps soon I'll make a trip to the space station. And visit me while you're here? Ratio. I'll come find you. Maybe this time I can learn a lot from you. Will you be disappointed if I haven't changed at all? Ratio. I'd be very happy. Whatever you are now, it is a form of genius. It's what you promised me back then, to become a genius in your own way. Congratulations. You've achieved it. Bai Luan smiled and put his phone away. The seed's genetic edits had finished. He took them, opened the anywhere door, and stepped onto the lifeless planet. He spent an entire day planting seeds in various suitable locations. Perhaps one day the place would be carpeted in flowers. It would surely be beautiful. His botanical garden notes would have one more entry to record. What to call this planet? Hippolyta, he decided. He went into the little black room, took out the garden notebook, and wrote, Today, I planted life on a planet. P.S. Recently, a reader has been constantly atting me with suggestions and complaints about recent plot developments. Every sentence was heartfelt and full of regret. Every word spoke of declining quality, as if he had written this book himself and wanted to teach me how to write. About this, I state, you'd better have produced a work that reached a score of 9.8 before 200,000 words and peaked at over 500,000 active readers. Otherwise, my only reply will be, read if you like it. Otherwise, get lost. Tomato is a free site. When a book reaches a point you don't like, you can leave any time and find one you do. If you search all of Tomato and can't find one, then go write it yourself. It's that simple. Do I have to teach you? The only book that can be 100% to your taste is one you write yourself. That's why I picked up the pen. When I couldn't find the book I wanted to read, I started writing instead of pointing fingers and demanding others change theirs. I looked at your homepage and didn't see a single fan fiction with a 9.8 rating and over 500,000 active readers. Did I? So what right do you, who never picked up the pen, have to instruct me, who did? I don't even have the right to criticize others, let alone you. If you're truly capable, write a 9-point work and let me see it. Readers are looking forward to Tomato having another 9-point fan fiction. All right, that's all for today's digression. By the way, some readers suggested I create a separate section for reader requests to reduce their impact on chapter comments. Should I add it? If I do, I can put a brief check-in at the end of each chapter and hope everyone will cooperate. 129. I need the coordinates of this planet. After more than 100 pulls and still no guaranteed pity, Bai Luan gave up on trying to summon fate. He'd planned to use the anywhere door to teleport somewhere just for a change of scenery, but since he'd taken the time off, he didn't want it to go to waste. Was there anywhere the anywhere door could drop him that would make a good little trip? The Shanzhou Lufu came to mind. He hadn't been to Shanzhou proper, but he'd ridden the Astral Express, and conveniently the train was docked right at the Lufu's doorstep. Why not treat it like a vacation? If he could scavenge some Jianmu from Xianzhou and forge a sword, that would be a bonus, though Jianmu was tightly controlled there, so that was unlikely. It could stay as a side hope. He could try Tarot Boba, play a few rounds of Empyrean Jade, and catch Ganefen's live stream antics. The Xianzhou wasn't like the other places he'd visited. Someone who appeared out of nowhere could be detained by the Cloud Knights. Even visiting the Lufu through normal channels meant annoying bureaucracy. Claiming to be with the Genius Society would save a lot of trouble. Bai Luan pulled out his phone and asked Star for Jingyuan's contact. He needed an excuse to visit the Lufu. Something flimsy would do. As Genius Society member number 85, he sent a short message to Jing Yuan. I might be able to cure the Mara struck. Interested in cooperating? Okay, I'll wait for his reply, Star said. He planned to step through the anywhere door once he had a response. His foster father had said he'd be coming soon, which likely meant Ruan Mei would also show up to try and create an Aeon emissary. Maybe Ruan Mei would want Mara struck extracted by the extraction gun. After all, Mara struck could be considered a blessing from abundance, and studying it might help her research. He messaged her directly. Miss Ruan Mei, are you there? What is it? Suppose, purely suppose, if I forcibly extract Mara struck at a certain state, would you be interested in the extracted material? Interested. What reward do you want? Not finished. This carries risks. If the storage is damaged, the Mara struck inside will leak onto whoever's holding it. Thank you for the warning. What reward do you want? She wasn't worried. Typical of a genius. Bai Luan couldn't help a tiny pout. He settled on a convenient answer. Considerate payment for helping raise Qing. I don't have it yet, but when I do, I'll send it to you. Thank you. You're welcome. With Ruanmei interested, he just had to wait for Xianzhou's reply. He's already started to act. Someone has begun divining about you by various means, Star warned. Oh? Fu Xuan had taken notice. He held off replying. Was Jingyuan asking Fu Xuan to divine the outcome of this invitation? Jingyuan was cautious, and that was sensible. Genius Society members had a knack for causing unnatural events. Then Bai Luan's mind wandered to mischief. Could he control Fu Xuan's divination results? Simple, the system answered. Bai Luan grinned. First, make her divine that I'm male. And then, make her divine that I'm pregnant. There was a surprised silence from the system. You really know how to have fun. At the Xianzhou Lufu, Fu Xuan stared at the divination she had produced. He was male, but pregnant? She'd heard of the strange things geniuses could do, but this was her own calculation. The results shattered her assumptions. For the first time, she doubted her own skill. It was absurd. She recalculated to be sure. This time, the reading said he was a short-lived species, living 700 or 800 years. No, how could both add up? She tried again. Now it said he had died 300 years ago. The shifting, contradictory results made her laugh in exasperation. Whoever she was calculating about had noticed her and was toying with her. That scoundrel, she muttered, then stopped the divination. She realized she was being played and stopped calculating, Star observed. Is that so? What a pity, Bai Luan replied to the system. I was planning to play with her a little more before revealing myself. Young people these days lack patience. You short-lived species are teaching the long-lived species how to do things? Bai Luan only smiled. By teasing Fu Xuan, he demonstrated his strength and lent credibility to his earlier message. Now he waited to see how Jing Yuan would respond. Xianzhou has long been troubled by Mara struck, so we welcome anyone who offers help. Could you come to Xianzhou for a detailed discussion? I can. Could you notify us of your arrival time at the Lufu so we can prepare accommodation? Do you want me fast or slow? I can be there immediately. Immediately, as in, Bai Luan twisted the handle of the anywhere door and appeared in a train car. He photographed the Xianzhou Lufu from the window and sent it to Jing Yuan. I'm at your doorstep. Are you a nameless? Whether I am or not is not important. The important thing is I'm at your doorstep. Please wait. I will arrange the corresponding procedures. Understood. This is a necessary sacrifice for order. Thank you for your understanding. Pocketing his phone, Bai Luan glanced at Pom Pom, who'd been startled by his sudden appearance. Good morning, Pom Pom. Passenger Bai Luan, next time you come, tell Pom Pom first, Pom Pom said, clutching a broom with one hand and the other on his hip. You don't want Pom Pom to be scared and hit you with the broom, do you, Pom? Hey, I'll be careful next time, Bai Luan said, putting away the anywhere door. Bai Luan, long time no see, Welt Yang called from the sofa with a smile. Long time no see, Uncle Yang. Bai Luan returned the greeting. I've seen a lot of videos. Looks like Star's having a lot of fun on the space station. Old Yang still accepted new things with surprising ease. Bai Luan added, by the way, Uncle Yang, last time I visited a planet I think you might be interested in. Oh, really? Welt Yang's smile deepened, but he listened closely as if not to be swayed unnecessarily. He'd lived a long time and seen much, so few things moved him. There's a one-to-one replica of a Vanguard-class Titan, complete with a cockpit, Bai Luan said. Welt Yang's smile vanished. The reflection on his glasses hid his eyes, and his voice went quiet and steady. I need the coordinates of this planet. The general must have his reasons. Bai Luan readily shared Logos's coordinates with Welt Yang and greeted Hyperion. Hyperion said it was no problem. He'd already noted Welt Yang's name and was welcome to drop by any time, then quickly logged back into the game to continue exploring Night City. He seemed to be racing a few others for the fastest clear time. After that, Bai Luan asked Welt Yang a few questions about anime-related details that might be useful later. Soon after, General Jingyuan sent a message. The procedures were complete, and Bai Luan could depart for Shanzhou Luofu. Bai Luan waved to Old Yang, climbed into his mech, and headed for Shanzhou Luofu. Even though General Jingyuan had helped him skip many formalities, he still needed to stop by the Skyfaring Commission. There he met Yukong and went through the usual official routine, identity registration and a briefing on Shanzhou precautions. Since they'd even sent Yukong to meet him, Bai Luan had no reason to resist. He cooperated. The whole process felt, if anything, oddly familiar. When the paperwork was finished, Yukong looked at him with genuine relief. "Thank you for cooperating with my work," she said. It had been a long time since she'd encountered such a compliant outsider. No evasions, no arguments, no poor attitudes, just someone who understood and respected the rules. "You've been very helpful. It's my duty," Bai Luan replied. "General Jingyuan is waiting for you at the Cloud Knight headquarters." He said his goodbyes to Yukong and stepped out of the Skyfaring Commission. Not far off, a young man stood waiting. He'd obviously not known what Bai Luan looked like, just waited for him to appear. Bai Luan considered teasing him, but before he could, the youth walked over. "Are you Mr. Bai Luan? You know me?" "Yes, I asked my teacher and she sent me your photo." The boy held up his phone. The image on the screen was Bai Luan. The chat contact showed Stell. When had Stell taken that picture? She'd managed to catch him at a good angle, handsome, in a casual way. Bai Luan smiled inwardly. "Poor Aha, no spectacle today. What a coincidence, I know you too," he said, amused. "To be recognized by someone watched over by the omniscient heavenly sovereign is an honor," the boy replied solemnly. "Since Mr. Bai Luan already knows me, there's no need for more words. Please follow me to the Cloud Knight headquarters." "All right." The boy Yangqing led the way. On the walk, Bai Luan asked him a few questions. "I heard you can fly on a sword. Is that true?" "Did my teacher tell you that?" "It's not that impressive," Yangqing said. "Can you carry people when you fly?" "On Shanzhou, unless there are special circumstances, people don't fly freely on swords. If you collide with a star skiff or a mechanized bird, it'd be tragic, but that's not the main reason you can't carry passengers." "What is the main reason then?" Yangqing smiled. "There simply isn't room for so many people on one sword. If you cram onto it, the sword will protest." "Noted," Bai Luan said. "Another obscure but possibly useful fact added to my knowledge." He peppered Yangqing with more questions, where the beautiful places were, which stalls had the best food, what was fun to do, and Yangqing answered patiently. As he did, a strange unease crept in. Why did this feel like being a tour guide? The person he escorted was a guest personally received by General Jingyuan, someone with considerable background, yet he behaved like a casual tourist. General Jingyuan hadn't told Yangqing why Bai Luan had come. Maybe he'd made a mistake. Had he picked up the wrong person? The doubt nagged, but Yangqing checked the photo again and calmed himself. No mistake. General Jingyuan must have his own reasons. They arrived at the Cloud Knight headquarters. Bai Luan's eyes widened. General Jingyuan, Yang Fushuan, all present. Although two of them were still only in a promising future state, these were essentially Shanzhou's core figures. Fushuan looked at Bai Luan with cool hostility, decidedly still remembering she'd been tricked earlier. Bai Luan smiled and bowed. "I've long admired the general's reputation. It's an honor to meet you." General Jingyuan smiled in return. "I didn't expect you to know a few Shanzhou phrases." "I'm very interested in Shanzhou culture," Bai Luan said. Yangqing answered many of my questions on the way. Yanqing waved it off. It's nothing, just common knowledge for Shanzhou people. Bai Luan added, with a casual air, although I've never been to Shanzhou before, I consider myself a spiritual Shanzhou native. Treating the Mara-struck condition is only part of my reason for coming. Honestly, I wanted to come to Shanzhou to have some fun. If that's the case, let's get to the point so we don't delay your enjoyment, General Jingyuan said. Bai Luan nodded. Before I begin, I must apologize to Miss Fushuan for my previous impoliteness. I'll need to do something to convince you of my identity and ability. Fushuan's expression softened. I'm not that petty. If I fuss over every little slur, I'd only wear myself out. Thank you for your generosity. Bai Luan bowed to her, then spoke formally about his plan for treating the Mara-struck condition. I've created a device that might be able to remove the Mara-struck condition that has plagued Shanzhou for so long. Fushuan frowned. Is it really that simple? Yes, it really is. If anyone else had said that, she might have dismissed it. But coming from Bai Luan, whose reputation as a genius preceded him, the claim could not be ignored. He continued, anticipating skepticism. I understand your concerns. I'll cooperate with experimental procedures. I can guarantee the experiments will be safe and won't kill the subjects. But there are 3 things I need to state up front. First, I don't know what the subject will be like after the Mara-struck condition is removed. Second, the number of times I can extract the condition is limited, so you must choose subjects carefully. Third, although the procedure isn't life-threatening, it will be painful. General Jingyuan and Fushuan exchanged glances. Jingyuan then looked at Bai Luan and said, "Give us some space to discuss." Of course. Bai Luan deliberately stepped back and started playing with his phone. He wasn't worried. At worst, General Jingyuan would refuse the experiment. But with the opportunity to rid themselves of the Mara-struck condition staring them in the face, could the people of Shanzhou really refuse? 131. I am not familiar with them. What people called immortality was really more like an undying curse. Short-lived species were stretched into long-lived ones, but the option of a natural death was taken from them. Xianzhou natives did not age into a peaceful sleep. The possibility of passing away with dignity was forever closed. So when a chance to regain the right to die of old age presented itself, it was not something anyone would give up lightly. Still, choosing experimental subjects was difficult. Not everyone wanted to be a guinea pig. Even if Bai Luan promised the experiment was not life-threatening, many would not believe him. He thought the ideal candidate would be one of the disciples of Sanctus Medicus, someone they could briefly take the Mara-struck from and then return it without using up an S-rank bullet slot. But in the end, the selection process was up to General Jingyuan and the others. Fortunately, they did not keep him waiting long. General Jingyuan and his officers reached a decision quickly. Mr. Bai Luan, Jingyuan said, about the subjects, we plan to first consult the Ten Lords Commission. Could you give us some time? The Ten Lords Commission? Bai Luan repeated. He recalled the setting, in short, the Xianzhou underworld. He didn't know much, only that the prison of imprisonment was a notorious trouble spot. Blade had cut his way out of it. Hulei had escaped it. The prison needed better security, but that was none of his business. I have no problem. I'm quite free. Thank you for your understanding, Jingyuan replied. How do you plan to find subjects? Bai Luan asked. This requires explaining the Ten Lords Commission's duties, Jingyuan said. Go ahead. I don't know much about them. When a Shanzhou native reaches the limit of their lifespan and is about to fall into the Mara-struck, the judges of the Ten Lords Commission appear, take them to the commission, judge their life, grant them a dignified death, and upload their consciousness to the Hall of Karma. Bai Luan nodded. Despite the archaic trappings, Shanzhou's systems were just technology and power. Destroy the body, upload the mind. So you want to ask whether there's anyone who has just fallen into the Mara-struck who can be brought over for the experiment? Unfortunately, as far as we know, all recent Mara-struck cases have already been handled. Given the recent upheaval on Xianzhou, there should have been many new Mara-struck cases, all dealt with. Either their efficiency was remarkable or the timing was unlucky. Bai Luan sighed. I came at an inconvenient time then. Jingyuan looked at him. If there are no one who have already fallen, what other candidates does the Ten Lords Commission have? Could you accept using death row inmates for experiments? No, we have no intention of doing that. Experimenting on people is illegal on Xianzhou. Then why the commission? The Xianzhou has a vast population. Every day there are people nearing the end of their lives. We will ask those who are approaching the limit if they will accept this experiment. Those approaching the limit were suitable, already close enough to be facing the commission's arrangements, so consenting to an experiment was a meaningful choice. What if no one agrees? Then the Xianzhou is still willing to cooperate. When suitable candidates appear, we will contact you. So I just wait for good news? That's right. Need a pot of tea while you wait? Jing Yuan teased. Forget tea. A cup of milk tea is more practical. Jing Yuan chuckled. I've heard the Genius Society has its quirks. You fit the description. Compared to other geniuses, I'm more easygoing, Bai Luan said. Fu Xuan stepped forward. Can you specify how you plan to remove the Maristruck from a Xianzhou native? Bai Luan took out the extraction gun, gave it a shake, and said simply, one shot. Fu Xuan frowned. Ever since the Xianzhou discovered the Maristruck, their medical commissions had been obsessed with cures. After so long, they hadn't even found effective ways to slow it. A problem that had plagued the Xianzhou for generations was reduced to a single shot in Bai Luan's hands. Members of the Genius Society had done remarkable things before, but this still sounded almost too fantastic. She had to see it happen to believe it. Not long after, Yang Qing's phone pinged with a reply from the Ten Lords Commission. He stepped forward to report. General, someone has agreed and is being sent over now. Understood, Jing Yuan said. Soon, agents from the commission brought an old man on the brink of becoming Maristruck to the Fu of the Divine Strategy. The escort was Judge Shui. Judge Shui of the Ten Lords Commission, greetings, General. As commanded by Lord Siwang, I have delivered the subject to the Fu of the Divine Strategy. Jing Yuan inclined his head. You've worked hard. Please rest aside. He turned to the old man, who kept himself modest and reserved, and asked kindly, Do you understand everything? Are you willing to undergo the experiment? The old man nodded. I understand. If I refuse, I'll fall into the Maristruck anyway. I'm willing to take the gamble. Jing Yuan nodded, then looked at Bai Luan. Bai Luan took the extraction gun, stepped forward, and motioned for the man to extend his hand. The old man's hand trembled. Bai Luan took it in his, smiling to calm him. What's your name? He asked. Li Wenji, the old man replied. Since you chose this, you must have someone you can't bear to leave behind. Yes, Li Wenji said. In the latter half of life, you're always saying goodbyes. Either you leave or others leave. If I had the chance, I would want to say goodbye a little later. Maybe that's what makes us human. No matter how long we live, we always feel it's never enough. It might hurt a lot, Bai Luan warned. I know, Li Wenji said, taking a deep breath. Let's do it. Bai Luan nodded, loaded an S-rank bullet into the extraction gun, and began the extraction. Pain immediately contorted the old man's face, and for 20 minutes it intensified until his features were torn by suffering. Still, he did not ask to stop. When the extraction finished, Li Wenji fainted. Bai Luan caught him and checked his vitals. Everything was normal. He removed the bullet and inspected it. Curio, extraction gun bullet, partial abundance blessing. Good thing it was an S-rank bullet. Had he used an A-rank, he might have pulled only the abundance blessing and left them with immortality stripped of the final distortion. An immortality that would still have the Maristruck's worst consequences. Without the Maristruck, true immortality would remain. Giving me immortality alone might still be tempting, Bai Luan thought. But with the Maristruck, I definitely don't want it. Before he could finish the sentence, a sudden change occurred. The Aeon of Abundance glanced at him from across the sea of potential. With that gaze came the abundance blessing flooding into him. Feeling the blessing surge, Bai Luan looked at General Jing Yuan. Jing Yuan looked back. An awkwardness hung between them. Of all places on Xianzhou, the world that had been hunting the Aeon of Abundance across the galaxy, this Aeon chose to bless him. Bai Luan felt like his reputation had been unintentionally betrayed mid-sentence. Aeons, he thought with wry helplessness, must be even more capricious than mortals. He managed a small, embarrassed explanation to Jing Yuan. Actually, I'm not familiar with them. Author's note: I saw a reader suggest that the Maristruck is a method of the Aeon of Harmony. I don't know if the official text confirms that, but that's not how I understand it. If the Maristruck were primarily Harmony's doing and had little to do with the Aeon of Abundance, why would the Hunt and Xianzhou spend so long hunting abundance? Did they never realize Harmony was the source? If the Hunt did know, why target abundance instead of Harmony? It doesn't make sense to me unless they couldn't reach Harmony and took it out on abundance because it was kinder and easier to blame. My take on the Aeon of Abundance: their pure, indiscriminate kindness is actually more terrifying than outright evil. They grant what you ask without judging how you use it. They ensure you remain alive, but don't care how that life is lived or what you think while living it. The Maristruck, I see, is the price short-lived species pay to become long-lived, a link to willpower. When a person's will wanes, they would normally die, but with the abundance blessing, they are forced to continue in a distorted state, the Maristruck. Some readers worry that removing the Maristruck would turn Xianzhou into a new threat. I don't think it would become the dominant ideology. Before the first Maristruck outbreak, Xianzhou's reputation under abundance wasn't uniformly terrible. They were accepted by other races. Gunaifan's backstory, for example, shows the Xianzhou's willingness to rehabilitate rather than punish when they understood circumstances. So while certain factions might take extreme paths, I don't believe the entire civilization would tip into disaster. Finally, even after removing this lore dump, the chapter still has enough word count. This isn't the first time, and it won't be the last. I won't keep emphasizing it. This blessing of abundance looks the same as the Xianzhou people's. Now you're Mara-struck too. Next time you make a prank video, you can claim it was a Mara-struck episode. Who would want that? Bai Luan glared at General Jing Yuan. As you can see, I've been set up by the abundance. What are you going to do about it? General Jing Yuan was silent for a long moment. He'd never encountered anything like this. None of the usual procedures fit. After thinking it over, he said, I believe you, but we still have to run a check. It's for everyone's safety, and yours. A blessing of abundance isn't necessarily a blessing. I understand. I'll cooperate. At least General Jing Yuan didn't move against him on the spot. Once they reached the Danding division, Bai Luan could extract his Maristruck. So Yanqing, General Jing Yuan, Fu Xuan, Shui Yi, a number of Cloud Knights, and many others escorted him to the Danding division, where a group of prominent physicians had already gathered. They circled the unconscious Li Wenji and examined him with a mix of awe and bafflement. What they found shook them. An incredibly precise force had stripped the blessing of abundance of all its harmful parts, leaving only the beneficial elements intact. Some of the physicians whispered that it might as well have been the abundance itself operating. It was nothing short of a miracle. How could a mortal achieve such exacting surgery? Li Wenji's body showed more pronounced aging after the procedure, but it was normal aging. At this rate, the elder might live a while longer, rather than collapsing Maristruck. The Ten Lords Commission had recently declared him near his limit, on the verge of falling into Maristruck. Now, though he had visibly aged, the Maristruck had been removed. In other words, his life had been extended, while the dangerous collapse into weakness was prevented. He would age faster in old age, but that was infinitely preferable to falling Maristruck. Bai Luan watched the physicians as they traded technical terms he didn't understand. He couldn't follow their jargon. This was one of his blind spots. Shortly after, the physician assigned to examine him arrived, Ling Sha, a sitting-level doctor. General Jing Yuan had spared him no resources. Bai Luan noticed Bai Lu sneaking around in the crowd, trying to slip away to find some amusement in the chaos. Ling Sha gave Bai Luan a quick once-over and pronounced, "He's exactly like a normal, healthy Xianzhou person. If General Jing Yuan hadn't told me you were a short-life species recently, I would have thought you were a local." Bai Luan grinned and made a self-mocking remark. "I was even calling myself a spiritual Xianzhou person not long ago. Looks like I really have become one." He produced his extraction gun and looked at Ling Sha. "Are you finished with your examination? Once you are, I'm going to extract my Maristruck." "Go ahead," Ling Sha said, stepping aside and watching closely. Everyone turned to watch. It was an odd sight. Bai Luan plunged the extraction gun into his arm and began the process. Hiss. It hurt, horribly. 20 minutes of it. No wonder Firefly and Li Wenji had fainted after being extracted. They'd passed out from the pain. The extraction gun kept him lucid, deliberately preventing unconsciousness to avoid complications. The idea was sound, the reality was brutal. Still, he was in front of a crowd. Bai Luan squared his shoulders, determined not to make a scene. He controlled his face, gritted his teeth, and endured. 20 minutes felt like an eternity. When it ended, he breathed a soft sigh of relief and pulled an S-grade bullet from the gun, the same kind of projectile used to capture the Maristruck. Firefly had used one, the experiment had used one, and now he had used one. There had been 5 bullets, 3 were gone. He glanced at General Jing Yuan. "Do you want the remaining 2?" he thought, but didn't say it out loud. A physician who had watched the extraction couldn't contain himself. "That's it? Just pull it out with a gun? That's how it's solved?" Bai Luan nodded simply. "That's it." The physician was livid. "I cannot accept this. I've devoted years to studying medicine, sacrificing sleep and food, trying to crack the Maristruck, and now this." He raked his hair and looked like he might lose his mind. "You can't just pull a gun and solve it like that. What does that make me? What does that make all my work?" Before he could finish, Shui appeared behind him and knocked him out with a single chop. "He's too agitated. Let him sleep it off," she said. Bai Luan looked down at the unconscious physician and thought how tragic it would be if the man succumbed to his pride. Genius walks among the stars while the mediocre can't even follow a single footprint. The example was obvious. But Bai Luan's own path here hadn't been easy. Far from it. The endless nights in the little black room, the hard work and accumulation of knowledge were invisible to those who saw only the final result. To them, a breakthrough looked like a flash of genius. What could he do? If he told them the truth, they wouldn't believe him. He was just someone who'd worked longer and harder, a little smarter, only because he had more time. He took the bullet, extracted from Li Wenji, and held it up for the Dan Ding physicians to see. This bullet holds the key to curing Maristruck, but understanding how it works won't be simple. Even if the Xianzhou people are long-lived, it might take more than 1 or 2 generations to fully comprehend it. He turned to the physician, who was being helped up by colleagues. "Even with this bullet, you have a long road ahead. If you can't accept reality, you might end up like him." Then Bai Luan offered the bullet to the gathered physicians. "I won't stay here long. The challenge of curing Maristruck has to be taken up by you. Effort might not guarantee results, but doing nothing guarantees none. Are you ready to spend your lives trying to save others?" For a moment, nobody stepped forward. It was, after all, a bottomless pit of research. One could devote a lifetime and still not succeed. But duty has weight. Finally, Lingsha reached out and took the bullet from Bai Luan's hand. "Physicians must save lives. I will take this for research," he said. "As a Vidyadhara, I have the time." Bai Luan nodded in satisfaction and explained the precautions. The bullet would be difficult to break and dangerous if mishandled. "I understand," Lingsha said. "May you succeed, Miss Lingsha," Bai Luan added reflexively. "How do you know my name?" Lingsha asked. "Who knows?" Bai Luan smiled. "Maybe it's because I'm a genius." 133. Offline Real Wave. Sometimes calling yourself a genius is wonderfully convenient. It serves as an excuse for anything. It's the same fallback as "aha, got it," or "this is all part of the plan." In the future, when I'm spouting nonsense or inventing theories, I can always use that line to bluff my way through. Of course, it will dent erudition's credibility score, but who told it to bother glancing at me in the first place? Aha forced it to look once, but it was its own fault for keeping the stare afterward. Why does every aeon that glances at me cause such a scene? It's hardly subtle to be stared at on Shanzhou Luofu, which treats the abominations of abundance with suspicion. Ordinary abundance folk usually get by, but Shanzhou people have their prejudices, especially against foreigners. They always put them through extra scrutiny. As for what the abundance blessing actually did for me, I don't really know. The only thing I'm sure of is that I'm now long-lived. Well, that's useful enough. If I don't want to die, I have plenty of ways to keep breathing. If there are other bonuses, Yak might have the data. He keeps path blessing records. Maybe he can analyze what the Dan Ding division physician gave me. Before I could finish thinking it, a block of information slid into my head as if someone had pushed it through a slot. It was the Abundance Blessings Summary. Enhanced self-healing, plant affinity, accelerated growth, quite a few bonuses. This trip to Xianzhou Luofu paid off. Thanks, Yak. An emotional ping came with it, warm and quick, no problem. Why won't Yak talk to me in words? Perhaps he thinks language is inefficient. Don't forget he carries the Aeon data for elation too. He can do almost anything. Am I supposed to be relieved none of the Aeons double-crossed me? It's weird so many Aeon datasets coexist without clashing into a chaotic Aeon. You made it, so it's your problem, came the system's dry reply. As for a chaotic Aeon, that might happen when you die, the system added. No, I am not setting a flag. You're the one waving flags at me, I protested. The system snapped back, indignant. How dare little Bai Luan question me? Even if you were like some opera master on stage with flags everywhere, I still wouldn't see you die, I told it. Fine, you're impressive. I let the system alone and turned back to the real world. I had already proven my worth. Now I only needed to watch how Xianzhou Luofu's elders reacted. Something as fundamental to them as extracting the Mara-struck state would spark endless debate. Who should be next? Should this be made public? How should they treat me, an outsider? Questions like that would rumble through their councils, maybe even cause unrest. None of it was my concern. It was their internal affair. I could sit back, observe, and wait for the verdict. It felt a little like watching a neighbor's house burn while sipping tea on the porch. Not very honorable, but undeniably entertaining. Soon, Li Wenji, the old man who had slipped into a coma, woke up. The Dan Ding division physician explained his condition and instructed him to report for regular checkups. In short, he'd been given more time to say his goodbyes, better than being taken straight to the Hall of Karma. Li Wenji went straight to me and tried to kneel and kowtow. I nearly jumped, but I hauled him up before he could finish. Sweat beaded on my face from the reflex. That would have been a very literal way to shorten a life. If you want to show gratitude, kneeling isn't the way, I said. But I'm just a commoner. How else can I repay you? He muttered. It's simple. I patted his shoulder and smiled. Go home, find your family, live well until the day you no longer wake up, okay? Thank you. Li Wenji's face lit with relief. I really should go home. I nodded and let my hand fall from his shoulder. If you have a home, go back to it. At that moment, Shui, who had brought Li Wenji, walked over and said calmly, Li Wenji, I'll accompany you on the way back. I just received notice. The official explanation will be that the Ten Lords Commission made a misjudgment. Wouldn't that hurt the Ten Lords Commission's reputation? Li Wenji asked. No need to worry, Shui said. Predicting someone is about to fall into the Mara-struck state isn't 100% certain. The Commission has always relied on an observation period. Misjudgments are extremely rare. For his family, this will feel like a miracle. Li Wenji nodded repeatedly. Life and death, it's always safer to believe. Any Xianzhou Luofu person will understand. They were polite, civilized people. There were no rabble-rousers to make a scene. I relaxed. Shui bowed to me, then left with Li Wenji. The Dan Ding division physicians departed as well. In the end, the Luofu would probably conceal the incident until they had something more solid to announce. How they'd keep it secret? That was their business. Xianzhou Luofu had the means. What I was curious about was when they'd noticed that I, Bai Luan, had slipped away. I found General Jing Yuan and asked, Do you need me for any of the next steps? He smiled. Do you want to be involved? No, I said bluntly. It's better if I'm not tangled in those messy affairs. Haha, I figured you'd say that. He laughed. Since you don't want in, enjoy your time on Xianzhou Luofu. There are still many places to see. Understood. I waved my hand and turned to go. Half a step later, I rounded back. Oh, if they're looking for the next candidate for a Mara-struck extraction, I think you'd be a good fit. If they ask me, that's my opinion. Don't bother me. General Jing Yuan smiled and inclined his head. I left with a confident stride. The serious business was over. Now it was time to find something good to eat and enjoy the street food. And while I'm at it, I might go offline for a bit and mess with little guy. P.S. It seems many readers misunderstood what the Mara-struck extraction did. I've always meant long life, not eternal life. Extraction of the Mara-struck state doesn't grant immortality. Typical Xianzhou Luofu person, infancy, youth, old age, Mara-struck state. A Xianzhou Luofu person after extraction, infancy, youth, old age, dies of old age. My extraction simply returned the right to die of old age to the Luofu people. As for all the other problems that come with long life, if you read through Xianzhou Luofu's history, you'll see they've already experienced most of them. 134. The magic of doubling the number of people in the live broadcast room. Bai Luan casually bought a cup of milk tea, opened his phone, connected to Xianzhou's internal network, and started browsing the video site. He quickly found Gneifen's channel. Compared with Bai Luan, who only uploaded stunt videos on the Star Network, Gneifen's clips were far more varied. Training a D-Ting to light firecrackers, breaking a stone slab on her chest, whistling while brushing her teeth, locking a spear at her throat, even catching bullets with her bare hands, albeit rubber bullets. She was more a performance artist than a typical vlogger. Sometimes Sushang showed up in her videos too. Neither was particularly chatty or flashy, but together they fit well. Coincidentally, Gneifen was live. Bai Luan took a sip of milk tea and entered her stream. Her energetic voice greeted him immediately. Ladies and gentlemen, behold, this humble Gneifen will now perform. Watch crimson silk ribbons dance like clouds, the star skiff leap like fire. If my esteemed viewers find the colored flames swallowing the moon or the golden spear locking the throat a little rare, please bestow some shun di for good fortune. That background looked familiar. He remembered passing it when he bought milk tea earlier. He'd check it out later. Relying on memory, Bai Luan found the exact location of her stream and glanced at the viewer count. Not many people had arrived yet. It must have just started. He watched Gneifen perform with practiced energy, then took out his phone. He was about to try a little trick that would multiply the live stream's viewer count many times over. On screen, Gneifen watched the viewer number climb steadily. She called out a few more greetings, put down the small gong, and started preparing props for the next act. She picked up a handkerchief and smiled. There were already over 2,000 people. People had come quickly. She'd likely reach her usual numbers in a few minutes. She'd warm up with a small acrobatic bit first. Then she noticed the digits after the 2,000. 20 million? Wait, how much? Was the display broken? Her handkerchief slipped from her fingers and fell to the floor. Family, is the viewer count bugged? It says over 20 million watching. If it had been a few 100,000, that would have been normal. 100 to 200,000 would make her happy. 300,000 and she'd feel on fire. But more than 20 million? That was terrifying. Too many people. And the number was still rising, almost at 30 million. At that rate, it could blow past 100 million. Something was very wrong. Flustered, Gneifen looked at the live comments. Let me see what Yimu usually watches that makes his mental state so beautiful. Congratulations, miss. You've been rated by Yimu. Brothers, I watched this vlogger's videos. She's actually talented. Be nice, everyone. Look how scared the vlogger is. She doesn't even know what's happening. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. We're here to rob you. Our boss is called Yimu. If you know what's good for you, hand over the money. Masked fool? When did he get here? Throw him out. Seeing everyone go crazy actually makes me feel better. From the comments, Gneifen pieced it together. She'd been rated by someone big. Of course, she knew the ID Yimu. As a performer, she kept an eye on Star Network's hot topics. She'd even been studying Yimu's latest performance yesterday, breaking down the moves to try them herself in today's stream. She hadn't expected the coincidence. She'd practiced it yesterday, and now a big shot had boosted her stream. Opportunities favored the prepared. After a moment's shock, she snapped back into character as Xiao Guizi. Thanks to the great Yi Mu for the recommendation. Xiao Guizi thanks you all. No matter where you came from or why you're here, once you're in Xiao Guizi's stream, you're family. She bent to pick up the fallen handkerchief and pulled out the speaker she'd set aside. Since you, my family, are here because of Yi Mu, Xiao Guizi will first perform a dance related to Yi Mu. In the real-life audience watching the show, people started talking too. Veteran fans knew Xiao Guizi always chatted before her acrobatics, so they weren't surprised by her small talk. Others, new to it, began to ask questions. Who's Yimu? You don't know? He's huge on the Star Network. I don't really watch that site much. Oh, he's the one who does that dim yellow street lamp can't illuminate. Before the singer could finish, his friend lit up. It's that song. I know it. I hear it everywhere lately. That song's by Yimu, and there's usually a dance with it. A dance? Why did Xiao Guizi pull out a trash can then? Haha, if you haven't seen it, you won't get it. The trash can is essential. It's part of the routine. Those who hadn't seen the routine were puzzled. Those who had watched couldn't help laughing at the thought of the trash can, Bai Luan included. He fought back a grin as Guinaifen crawled into the trash can and closed the lid behind her. The music started. She pushed up, emerged, and launched into the first phase of her routine. She propped both hands on the rim of the can, flipped herself out with practiced ease, and held a difficult judo-like pose on the lid with perfect timing. She even balanced in a handstand on the trash can, and as the music swelled, pushed off with one hand into a backflip, landing cleanly and flowing into the next segment with a confident turn. Bai Luan clapped. She really was skilled. Her movements were fluid and seamless, timing exact, strength and tension fully expressed. She was a talented performer. The live comments agreed. Dedication, preparing a specific trash can for this dance deserves applause. Quack! High-level performance for sure. Yimu called it. The body control flipping out of a trash can is insane. Who gets how cool that seamless turn into the next move is? That's next-level showmanship. I admit it. Interesting woman, you've caught my attention. When the music finished, Guinaifen paused to catch her breath. Thanks, family, for the support. If you liked it, don't forget to follow Xiao Guizi. Stay tuned. Xiao Guizi has plenty more tricks up her sleeve. The comment stream exploded. More acts? I've got no choice now. I'm following. The Star Network is amazing. First a genius's hot dance, now a beautiful girl doing acrobatics. I love this place. Guinaifen pushed the trash can aside, gathered the props she'd prepared. The next act was the real showcase of her skill. 135. God has eyes. God has eyes. God has eyes. God has eyes. Guinaifen moved like a living marvel. She balanced a porcelain bowl on her head while supporting her entire body on one hand, swallowed a long sword hole, and spun 3 handkerchiefs, not just with her hands but with her feet as well, sometimes while standing on her head. Watching the act in full, Bai Luan's first uncharitable thought was, with skills like that, she probably wouldn't need to resort to any cheap tricks. Among the crowd, he also spotted a familiar figure, Bai Lu, who had slipped away earlier. The girl tried to make herself small and melt into the mass of people, moving with a guilty, cautious air, utterly captivated by Guinaifen's performance. At thrilling moments, she applauded with obvious delight, her little face lighting up. The applause would die down and she would snap back to reality, posture stiffening, neck hunched, and eyes bright and darting as if she expected someone from the Dan Ding division to appear and spot her at any second. The contrast between the frantic physicians of the Dan Ding division searching all over vast Xianzhou for their missing ward, and this same ward sitting enchanted in the crowd struck Bai Luan as deliciously ironic. He couldn't help the faint smile that tugged at his lips. Maybe his sixth sense had something to do with it, because at that moment the little girl turned and their eyes met. Bai Lu recognized him. She had seen him once before she ran off, and after a beat of startled fear, she pressed a finger to her lips to shush, then brought her palms together and bowed slightly, begging with a look that said plainly, "Please, don't tell anyone." Bai Luan found the spectacle both pitiful and adorable. He returned her plea with a slow, amused wave and a nod, promising with his eyes not to say a word. Bai Lu, visibly relaxed, patted her chest as if reassured and returned to watching the show. By the time Bai Luan finished his milk tea, Guinaifen was still going strong, now juggling a dozen balls. As he stepped away from the crowd, she glanced up and saw him leaving. His silhouette felt faintly familiar, though she couldn't place him. She dismissed the feeling, deciding she'd think about it later, and threw herself back into the performance. That night, though, as she lay awake, clutching her blanket, it came to her. I remember, that looked like Yimu himself. He came to Xianzhou? Why didn't I chase him for an autograph? Regret kept her up. Insomnia followed. But that was a story. Bai Luan dropped his empty cup into a trash can and paused, idly wondering whether a Stellaron had ever rummaged through that bin. It was one of those strange, pointless thoughts he could drop immediately. He wandered Jianzhou, taking in the bustle. Children racing each other, vendors calling out their wares. For the first time in a long while, he felt the small, ordinary comfort of a street in a peaceful place. Life on the space station had always carried the scent of work. Most of the places he'd been to since were more important, more dramatic. A calm, settled Xianzhou felt almost alien after Gerillo and Beta Star and the like. Compared to those, Xianzhou was lucky. Despite its recent troubles, it was peaceful. He hadn't come to loaf, though. Having tried the tarot ball boba, he moved on to quieter curiosities. Qingkui's obsession, Jade Realm Mahjong. He wanted to see how it differed from the mahjong of his previous life. It didn't take much searching to find a parlor. Bai Luan hung back at first, watching a few rounds, then joined when there was an open seat. It's mahjong, that's all, he thought after a few rounds. A familiar game with a new name. No surprises, but playing a few rounds wouldn't hurt. He sat and, almost as a joke to himself, started winning. Win after win. Worst case would be a draw. The others looked baffled. Luck could explain one victory. A hot streak could explain three. But an all-afternoon reign of near-constant wins under so many eyes was suspicious. "Buddy, are you even trying to pretend anymore?" someone muttered, hair on end from losing. Players circled, watching his hands as if they could catch a tell. But he wasn't cheating. He was counting. A set of Jade Realm Mahjong tiles had only 144 in all. Subtract the tiles in his hand, note what had been discarded, and infer possible combos and what each player still needed. It wasn't trickery, just observation and deduction. Didn't everyone do that? Bai Luan played the whole afternoon, while onlookers tried and failed to find the trick. To go so long without being exposed, with so many watching, impressed them even if they suspected something underhanded. News of the new mahjong star spread, and before long someone came to challenge him. It was Qingkui. She'd heard about the newcomer as soon as she finished work and wanted to see for herself. Bai Luan had no objections. The game was a pleasant puzzle. He liked the rhythm of it. The four of them played until dusk, and where Qingkui had started bright and eager, she ended the evening fraying at the edges. Nobody likes to keep losing. No matter what her luck or the tiles she drew, she couldn't land a winning hand against this new player. Bai Luan entertained himself with a simple thought. Jade Realm Mahjong is fun, one person's happiness built on three people's suffering. Another round began. Qingkui drew the last tile. The instant her fingers brushed it, her eyes lit up. She rearranged her tiles frantically, a grin spreading until she slammed her hand down and announced it like a victorious trumpet. "Ai! Mahjong! Heavenly hand!" Bai Luan, who had just been organizing his own tiles, could only stare. This time fate had outplayed calculation. He smiled helplessly and set down his tiles. There was nothing left to do. He'd been beaten by luck. The room erupted in cheers at Bai Luan's first loss, surprise, relief, and a little glee at the end of their losing streak. "Heaven has eyes," someone shouted. "Heaven truly has eyes." Bai Luan let the sound wash over him, a small, rueful smile tugging at his mouth. The child of destiny had made his move. 136. Now you are one of them. If even the heavens have declared her the winner, then there really wasn't anything I could do. Bai Luan gave a helpless smile, stood up, and prepared to leave. Wait. Qingkui called after him. "This round was pure luck. I only won because I got incredibly lucky. But you won so many rounds before. Do you have some secret technique? Technique? Does constantly using my brain count? I felt like explaining it that way would only get me scolded." Bai Luan paused, then answered with mock gravity. "It's nothing special. It's just about not using your brain at work and reserving all that saved mental energy for Emperor's Jade." The moment he said it, Qingkui's face transformed into one of utter reverence, as if he'd been shown some supreme truth. Now this is a true master. So this is the secret. It was enlightening and completely convincing. Only a legendary master of calculated idleness could dominate the deceptively casual, yet secretly fierce game of Emperor's Jade. "Friend, what should I call you?" Qingkui asked eagerly. "Bai Luan." Qingkui smiled and pulled out his phone. "Add me as a friend, won't you?" Next time you come to play cards, let me know. Why? Bai Luan raised an eyebrow. Want a rematch to redeem yourself? No. Chinqua shook his head emphatically, sincere to the core. Next time you come, I won't. Bai Luan stared, then laughed. Is this Chinqua's astonishing strategy? Low energy consumption, high efficiency. He waved goodbye and left, found a random inn, and slept through the night. The next day, his messages popped up. Jing Yuan, the discussion results are in. Jing Yuan, please come to the Divine Strategy residence for a detailed discussion. Efficient, indeed. Bai Luan went straight to the residence and met Jing Yuan. Jing Yuan talked a lot, but the essentials were few. Xianzhou was willing to enter a clandestine collaboration to research the project. He painted grand visions of what would follow if the research succeeded, but Bai Luan only half listened. Jing Yuan also gave Bai Luan a piece of jade as proof of Xianzhou's alliance. Finally, they offered to pay for the remaining opportunities Bai Luan had to treat the Maristruck. The price is generous, but I'm not short on money. Do you sell the ambrosial arbor? If you handed that over, I might consider it. Bai Luan teased. Impossible. Jing Yuan shook his head. His smile didn't change, but his tone was firm. Setting aside the dangers of the ambrosial arbor itself, with your current special status, having been glimpsed by the abundance, if you became too entangled with the arbor again, those old men on the Luofu who already resent it would likely make things difficult for you. Hearing that the Luofu old geezers might come after him, Bai Luan shrugged. Fine, if you won't hand it over, I won't force it, not like I particularly wanted it. Jing Yuan watched him, amused by the classic sour grapes act, and asked, General, who do you think should be treated next? Bai Luan asked on impulse. Jing Yuan blinked, thought a moment, and answered, I would choose Yang King. Why? I have high hopes for him. Are you sure that's not just because you feel sorry for your disciple? Bai Luan teased. Jing Yuan neither denied nor admitted, only smiled. All right, I'll take your suggestion into account. Bai Luan's tone turned casual. So, General, are you available for treatment now? You want me to go through it? Jing Yuan didn't sound surprised. Of course. Bai Luan grinned. You wouldn't want young Qing to see an unrecognizable, Mara-struck master in your later years, would you? Jing Yuan fell silent for a moment, then sighed softly. Since you're already making your own arrangements, why did you ask for my opinion earlier? Bai Luan produced the extraction gun, loaded an S-grade cartridge, and said lightly, because I enjoy seeing important figures have their suggestions ignored. Just kidding. I was curious. In truth, no matter who you named, I wouldn't have been surprised. Jing Yuan smiled and extended his arm. Then thank you. Be warned, it hurts a lot. Don't worry. Bai Luan didn't wait for him to finish. He plunged the needle in, and Jing Yuan fell silent. 20 minutes later, the treatment was over. Jing Yuan had endured it without passing out and could even speak. You're the first person I've treated who didn't lose consciousness afterwards. His face was a little pale. He gave a helpless smile. It had indeed hurt. Bai Luan removed Jing Yuan's Maristruck from the extractor and looked at it. Now you are one of them, Jing Yuan. I already gave you one before, so I'll keep this one. Giving you too many would just be trouble, Bai Luan said, pocketing the cartridge. Of course, there are quite a few on the Luofu who'd like you to take it away, Jing Yuan replied. Bai Luan added, that leftover bullet, you shouldn't limit its study to just how to remove the Maristruck. Oh, it has other uses. You can study the bullet. It contains a lot of interesting technology. Consider whatever you learn a free gift from me, but I don't think its greatest value to you right now is as a research specimen. What else could it be used for? To fish. Jing Yuan's eyes lit up as he immediately caught on. To catch disciples of the abundance? Bai Luan nodded. To them, that bullet isn't a curse, but a materialized miracle from the abundance. Of course, how you use that bait depends on your skill. I will put it to good use, Jing Yuan said. That's good. If you do it well, it could save many on the Luofu from being persecuted by them. Bai Luan stood to leave, then asked one last thing. About a disciple seeing off his master, Yang Qing doesn't have to follow your old path. Happy about that. Jing Yuan was slightly taken aback that Bai Luan knew of such old matters, but he didn't press for how. Happy, he said, relief and a complicated emotion flickering through his eyes. This is a good thing. I'm off. I played all day yesterday, and the Luofu is a pleasant place. I'll come back when I want to play again. You're welcome anytime. Bai Luan smiled and waved goodbye. After leaving the residence, he thought through whether he'd forgotten anything. The ambrosial arbor, he could seize it, but there was no need, and taking it would likely anger Xianzhou. Better to avoid unnecessary trouble. The omniscient array, Yak could calculate it. No reason for him to go. For now, there was nothing on the Luofu that particularly interested him. That was fine. A day spent at Emperor's Jade had cheered him up. He'd come back when something fun caught his eye. An anywhere door opened behind him. He stepped through, returning from the Luofu to the space station. Vacation's over. Time to report to Heita. 137. Bai Luan praying. Bai Luan stepped into Miss Heita's office and found her still poring over the simulated universe data from the star survey. Miss Heita, I'm back from messing around, he announced casually. Heita set the data aside and looked him over. All adjusted? He studied her for a moment, aware that his thoughts weren't a chaotic mess anymore and the intrusive memories weren't crowding in. The Emperor's Jade therapy actually worked. Relief flooded him. Consider it adjusted. Then I'll have to see how well you've adjusted. She took a few steps closer, closing the distance between them to inspect his face. When his expression stayed steady, she pinched his cheek and watched for a reaction. His response was milder than a few days ago, but Heita frowned. Something still felt off. She kept her eyes on him and finally asked, "Where did that abundance blessing come from?" Bai Luan shrugged with a helpless smile. "Would you believe me if I said the Arbiter General took a liking to me?" Heita couldn't help but smile back. "I didn't realize you were so popular." She relaxed a little. "It looks like you've adjusted nicely if you're even joking with me." "Does it affect me?" he asked. "I removed the negative effects. Only the benefits remain. Your lifespan has been extended at least." Her nodded. "That's not bad. He saved this genius some trouble." She didn't linger on the topic. "The Star Survey has finished the swarm disaster reconnaissance. I plan to invite Ruan Mei and Screwlum to the space station to share the data." Bai Luan's heart lurched. The three geniuses together had not been a pleasant memory last time he'd seen them on the space station. No, he could not go back to that relentless workload. He forced himself to think logically. The swarm disaster was already developed. It wasn't likely they'd start a whole new simulated universe DLC right away. The two geniuses wouldn't keep intense focus on him forever. Ruan Mei knew him only as the creator of the Azure and for his pastries. Screwlum's interest stemmed from the mechanical civilization he'd saved. For geniuses, those weren't earth-shattering accomplishments. It had been a long time since they'd contacted him. Their impression of him had probably faded. Under those circumstances, even if they visited, his workload wouldn't balloon back to the previous level. He felt himself calming as he rationalized. Who could be remembered forever by three geniuses? It'd be enough if even one of them kept him in mind. Heita's fingers suddenly jabbed his side. "When did you start losing focus in the middle of a conversation with a genius?" He yelped and wrenched back to reality. She watched his pained face, withdrew her hand, and crossed her arms with a smile. "Are you back? If not, I'll pinch you again." "No need," he muttered. "Anyway, that's the situation. Ruan Mei and Screwlum should arrive soon. Go make arrangements." "I understand." Outside her office, Bai Luan's thoughts began cataloging the tasks ahead. Asta could handle the welcome ceremony. The geniuses probably wouldn't care about pomp, but the space station couldn't go unprepared. Screwlum wouldn't make special demands, but Ruan Mei would likely use the module section Heita had reserved for her. He'd been in charge of that area before and knew what Ruan Mei would do there, so he'd used exceptionally strong materials when constructing it. Big workshops used a lot of material. The propagation aeon she'd replicated couldn't possibly break through that module in 56 seconds. The Mara-struck cartridges could be handed to Ruan Mei this time. Maybe her research could be adapted by the Xianzhou people to replace Mara-struck effects with normal aging. He couldn't just give it away, though. What would he get in return? More pastries. That felt inadequate. Better to let the Xianzhou decide compensation and let him act as messenger. He was still thinking along those lines when his phone buzzed incessantly. He scanned the screen. Several messages from Gwendolyn. Odd, He rarely received so many messages from anyone, and Gwendolyn wasn't one of his starred contacts. He opened them. A string of beautiful landscape photos. An old man appeared in most of them. Ah, Edward. Bai Luan typed and hit send. Gwendolyn replied immediately. I didn't expect Mr. Bai Luan to still remember me. I'm deeply honored. My memory isn't that bad yet, he answered. How's the interstellar travel? Very good, she said. I've never felt this happy. I have to thank you for the AI you prepared. It's too useful. Navigation, chatting so I'm not bored, taking photos, almost omnipotent. It even helped me register an account. What name did you pick? He asked. Oh, Ina and I decided together. It's the name of our future child. We thought of two, one for a boy, one for a girl. Ina wants a boy. I want a girl. This name is my tribute to Ina. I really have nothing to repay you, so I'll just show you the scenery I'm seeing. I hope I'm not bothering you. The photos were well taken, he replied. Knowing someone's life is better because of what he did was reward enough. Thank you, she wrote. You're welcome. If you run into any trouble, tell me. I'll handle after-sales support. He'd already set a fixed point on the ship. If anything happened, he could drop in through a dimensional door. Space pirates? He'd fly over and elbow them to death, no problem. Gwendolyn laughed in return. I hope your life is pleasant. I won't disturb you further. Bai Luan changed her contact name to Edward, switched off his phone, and put it away. Thoughts of the incoming geniuses returned like a low thrum of anxiety. When the three of you get together, please don't propose any more earth-shattering projects. No more overtime. He prayed, quietly, fiercely, that this reunion would be easy on him. 138. You know I'm the Black Tower. Assistant Ruan Mei was the first to arrive at the space station. Her entrance was quiet, like ink dropping into still water, bringing with it an unruffled, focused presence. She went straight to Heita's office. The welcome reception Bai Luan had asked Asta to set up, predictably, went unused. He had expected that. He'd told Asta beforehand that for Ruan Mei, the only proper welcome would be a few carefully made pastries. Any grand show would be background noise to her. Still, appearances mattered. They had to show courtesy to the genius. That was the difficult part of being station master, knowing when to observe form without wasting effort. Asta handled the arrangements. Bai Luan concentrated on baking. Inside Heita's office, the two geniuses shared a small tea. They sipped and nibbled while the conversation quickly sank into dense analysis of the swarm disaster data. Bai Luan understood some of the terms, but not all. More to the point, he simply didn't want to follow the proofs and abstractions. So he stayed on the edge of the exchange, the willing waiter, pouring tea, offering pastries, listening without intervening. He hovered, attentive but silent. By the end of the afternoon, they had exchanged nearly all the useful test results for the swarm disaster to date. Ruan Mei collected precisely the data she needed and, combined with her living swarm samples, now had everything required to begin building a propagation aeon. She wasted no time. Direct and efficient, she asked to be shown to the lab space assigned to her. Naturally, Bai Luan, who had been playing the quiet server, ended up leading the way. Who said guiding someone around was a bad job? Any task not involving the simulated universe was a relief. He walked her through the experimental wing in a light, easy tone, like pointing out equipment and safety measures, not noticing at first how Ruan Mei's gaze kept flicking back to him and changing. The lab itself was oddly overbuilt for what a standard biological lab would need. Its reinforcements and containment systems were far sturdier than necessary, almost as if it had been designed to hold something dangerous. Ruan Mei assumed that danger would be her project, a replicated propagation aeon, not herself. But how could Bai Luan have known? She had only asked Heita for a life research lab. She had not told Heita what kind of life she intended to make. In theory, Bai Luan shouldn't have known anything specific, and yet everything she saw suggested he did. Heita mentioned you might be able to see the future, Ruan Mei said calmly. I didn't take it seriously at the time, but now I'm beginning to believe her. Bai Luan blinked, subconsciously scratching his head. Why bring that up all of a sudden? The specs on this lab are far beyond normal. You're clearly aware of what I'll be doing here, aren't you? Yes, I'm very clear. He didn't deny it. Do you tell Heita what I'm working on? I don't usually report things she doesn't care about, he answered smoothly, as if he'd practiced the line. I like to handle things quietly. If she asks, I tell her it's done. That's an assistant's duty. A small, meaningful smile touched Ruan-Mei's mouth. I'm starting to understand why she's so fond of you. Bai Luan shrugged a little. It's my job. Would you consider being my assistant for the Aeon replication? Ruan-Mei asked. No, please allow me to refuse, he said immediately. Why? You know I'm Miss Heita's assistant. Simple and sufficient. Then I'll have to find someone else. Oh, speaking of which, Bai Luan's eyes brightened. I actually have an excellent candidate. Who? Her name is Xing's. That child's talent is top-notch. Trust me. Xing. Ruan-Mei paused, searching memory. Heita has mentioned her. Is she here on the station? Yes. I think her involvement would help your experiment a lot. I'll consider it, Ruan-Mei said, nodding. Bai Luan reached into his pocket and produced a small capsule, handing it to her. And this. Ruan-Mei took it and peered at the substance inside. Incomplete abundance blessing? You could call it that. You usually attach conditions to lending things, Ruan-Mei observed. I'm not Heita. Her look asked what the condition was this time. Bai Luan thought a moment. Simple. While you're on the space station, don't use it on your own creations. That's it. He wondered quietly whether Xing could handle a propagation aeon enhanced by the Maristruck. With even an incomplete abundance blessing, the replicated aeon's survival might extend beyond 56 seconds. If he were to extract a full abundance blessing and combine it with Ruan-Mei's techniques, it could become possible to perfectly reproduce a propagation aeon. Still, Bai Luan lost interest the moment the thought became inconvenient. If it wasn't something he wanted to pursue, there was no reason to make more work for himself. Well, that's the tour, he said, bowing slightly. I hope your project goes smoothly, Miss Ruan-Mei. He took the lift and left the experimental wing. Ruan-Mei turned the capsule over in her hand. The technology contained inside was likely worth far more than his pastry-making skills. He had grown a lot lately. Heita's assistant was not a simple role. Every time Ruan-Mei thought she'd seen his limit, he produced something else to prove she'd been wrong. That was why he could always stand at Heita's side. Come on. Come on. Before Mr. Screwlam arrived, Ruan-Mei had used the downtime to experiment, and she'd made all sorts of amusing little creatures. Hehe, the osmanthus cake kitties were a delight to pet. They were so soft and adorable, the texture was intoxicating. Star had linked up with Ruan-Mei too, and lately could often be seen helping her with tasks on the space station. After Star joined Ruan-Mei's experiments, the osmanthus cake kitties started multiplying at an astonishing rate. In his spare time, Bai Luan would wander over to pet the newborn kittens and help look after them. Screwlam arrived shortly after Ruan-Mei. With the three geniuses gathered on the space station again, Bai Luan felt a flash of unease. Still, he clung to his previous theory. The logic had been neat and the reasoning sound. At least Bai Luan convinced himself there were no flaws. Admittedly, there had been a small accident when he'd applied the theory to Ruan-Mei, but that couldn't happen twice in the exact same way. Applied to Screwlam, it would be flawless. He had gone to Bellowbog and studied the automatons there and even sketched out their source code, but he hadn't told Screwlam about any of that. Screwlam couldn't possibly have read the same script as him, could he? Or had Screwlam been watching him all along? No. How could that be? Screwlam wasn't aha. He wouldn't have been staring the whole time. Over time, Bai Luan told himself the filter he left on Beta Star should have faded. Now Screwlam should just see him as another genius assistant. Nothing special. Bai Luan watched Screwlam's ship descend and convinced himself everything would go as planned. When they met, Bai Luan kept up the pretense. Long time no see, Screwlam. Affirmative. Indeed, we have not seen each other since our last parting, Screwlam replied in his measured tone. What have you been up to lately? Statement. I have recently been experiencing Titanfall 2. Wait, what? Bai Luan's brain stumbled. Screwlam plays Titanfall 2? That meant Screwlam had read the plot too. A cold knot of dread began to form in his chest. No, it can't be repeating. Mr. Screwlam, what did you think of the game? Bai Luan asked, trying to keep his voice steady. As if to confirm the worst of Bai Luan's suspicions, Screwlam answered with a faint enthusiasm that made Bai Luan's stomach drop. Conclusion. I consider this an excellent and rare work. Things were already going off the rails. Bai Luan tried a last-ditch tone of casualness. Can I say, I didn't really think that deeply about it at the time? Of course, modesty has always been one of your admirable qualities, Screwlam said gently. Bai Luan forced a smile. Ha ha, as long as you enjoyed it. Screwlam's next words finished the knife. Reason. Witnessing the beautiful bond forged between automatons and humans in a game, I cannot help but feel an inexpressible solace. The story between the Vanguard-class Titan BT-7274 and its pilot is not only moving, but also demonstrates a profound connection that transcends the boundaries of machine and flesh. Logic. We seem to be able to glimpse a future possibility from it, that automatons and organic life will eventually move towards synergistic coexistence and mutual achievement. This is the most ideal future state between automaton life forms and organic life forms in my philosophy. Conclusion. Therefore, I also hold extremely high expectations for your future works. Bai Luan felt his face go cold. If Screwlam, of all people, was thinking along the same lines, if Ruan Mei had already reacted that way, and if Heita had similar inclinations, then overtime was inevitable. He had been telling himself there was still one saving fact. The Swarm Disaster DLC had only been released recently. They couldn't immediately leap to something like the development of Gold and Gears. A simulated universe DLC should have a cooldown. It would be illogical for them to pivot so quickly. The more he tried to reassure himself, the more the dread grew. It felt like sliding slowly toward an abyss named overtime, and he was powerless to stop it. The realization was terrifying. All right, everything would be fine. They were paper tigers. They couldn't scare him. He was only scaring himself. But in the following days, his worst premonitions came true. Screwlam, Ruan Mei, and Heita, three minds of enormous creativity, exchanged ideas and converged quickly. Riding the success of the Swarm Disaster Simulated Universe DLC, they seized on the notion of reconstructing pivotal moments in Aeon history. Their conversations splintered and recombined until a prototype idea began to take shape. It wouldn't be long before they pinned down the three eras, the Interastral Trade War and the two Emperor Wars, famous interstellar historical events ripe for simulation. Bai Luan watched the beginnings of a Gold and Gears concept form before his eyes. Realizing that the idea's ultimate form would be Gold and Gears was painful enough. Watching the overtime progress bar creep upward in his mind was even worse. There was no point fighting it. Once he accepted that another DLC was coming, he tried to make peace with the inevitability. After all, there were only a handful of simulated universe DLCs to do. Finish them now, and he could rest later. If he got them out early, he wouldn't have to worry about more surprise overtime forever after. Life was a mix of brief control and long stretches of helplessness. This was one of the latter. So Bai Luan adjusted his mindset and calmed himself. He might be working overtime soon, but he wasn't working overtime now. For the moment, he would be content. And then some good news arrived. Ratio. I hear the Heita space station now has 4 geniuses gathered. Yes, Ruan Mei, Screwlam, Heita. Well, I'm here on the space station too. Interesting. Ratio. I will be visiting the space station soon for an academic exchange. Welcome, Professor. Bai Luan took the opportunity to ask about the earlier incident. By the way, Professor, how did you ultimately handle the First University of Truth matter? I rejected their request. The current academic atmosphere and output at the First University of Truth are insufficient to justify leveraging the reputation of a genius society member for promotion. Their contribution to your growth was minimal, yet now they seek to claim credit as if they were the primary architects of your development. Laughable. Until they meet my requirements, I will not agree to their request. Bai Luan smiled inwardly. Truly the father of truth, rigorous and uncompromising. Heita's message came next. Come to my office, let's have a meeting. On my way? 140. Professor, please don't challenge my words. Heita had called all the geniuses together this time, not for anything else, but to invite new members to join the Simulated Universe project team. Everyone gathered mainly to discuss that. Stephen stayed out and didn't attend. Bai Luan was openly jealous. How nice it would be to just cast a vote and skip the meeting. Then again, if he tried that, Heita's very tangible hand would probably drag him there anyway. Still, Bai Luan fully supported bringing more geniuses on board. One more genius meant a little less work for him. Why not? Ideally, someone like Steven, someone who quietly contributed without stirring things up. The Simulated Universe project could use that kind of steady pillar. In the end, nobody from the Genius Society volunteered. That was probably because most of its members had been pushed to the fringes by Kakaka. Heita didn't seem to care. She even called out to the Silent Lord in the Void, inviting her to join the team. When Heita spoke, Bai Luan braced for Kakaka to pop out, but nothing happened. It just proved that most of the society members were focused on their own affairs. It reminded Bai Luan of a meme. Today's my 1-month anniversary in the group, and everyone's still the same. They don't care about me. Thanks, I won't care about you either. It was a joke, but it fit the Genius Society's atmosphere. More importantly, the meeting had allowed Star to join the Simulated Universe project team. Afterward, Bai Luan's workload ballooned. Both Ruan Mei and Screwlum came to him repeatedly, each time to discuss their respective research. Their conversations no longer revolved solely around the simulated universe. They were branching out. That was a sign of improving relationships, colleagues becoming friends. It was encouraging, even if understanding what they were saying often took effort. Ruan Mei always dropped by to talk about her analysis of the incomplete blessing of abundance. Screwlum's visits were gradually shaping the prototype of Golden Gears. Talking with him felt like watching a Golden Gears DLC being developed in real time. Engaging either of them required Bai Luan to learn on the fly. Fortunately, he could always use the excuse that he had to help Heita with something and thus escape an academic deep dive. Heita noticed he was using her as a shield but didn't call him out. An assistant leaning on his employer a little wasn't unacceptable. Still, it wasn't a long-term solution. An excuse repeated too often loses its power. He needed more ways to get out of conversations he couldn't follow. Then some good news arrived. Ratio had come to the space station. Perfect. He could say he had to show Professor Ratio around to dodge another talk with Ruan Mei. A savior. On the platform, Bai Luan waved at Ratio, stepping off the ship. "Professor, long time no see." "It hasn't been that long," Ratio replied. "You've been very active on the Star Network lately. Even if I didn't deliberately pay attention, the rumors reached me." Bai Luan scratched his cheek. "So you've seen those prank videos?" "I didn't watch them on purpose, but yes, I've seen them. Pretty much something you'd do." Ratio was well familiar with Bai Luan's occasional playfulness. He studied Bai Luan for a moment. "You haven't slacked off on physical training. You're stronger than when we last met." "Daily check-in workouts work," Bai Luan said, striking a casual fitness pose. "Professor, I'll take you on a tour of the space station." Ratio shook his head. "No need. I'll assess the station myself. Tours are a formality. There's no need to waste time." Bai Luan's plan hit a snag, but he'd already used the excuse once, so he figured he had broken even. "All right, Professor, I have one request." "What is it?" "Go easy on the criticism." Ratio fell silent for a beat. "Is the space station that bad?" "That's for you to judge, Professor." Bai Luan thought of his red-faced self from years back teaching the old novices. He suspected he felt the same embarrassment looking at some of the station's staff. Perhaps slightly better than before, but not by much. "Visiting shouldn't take long. After the inspection, will you be doing anything else here? If you need anything, I can help." "I might meet some geniuses besides conducting my assessment," Ratio said. "As for whether I'll issue a challenge letter, that depends." "Challenge the geniuses?" "No way." "Professor, don't challenge me," Bai Luan blurted, half in jest. Ratio glanced at him, amused. Among the station's geniuses, Bai Luan was the least likely target of a successful challenge. Ratio had taught him, and Bai Luan had learned well. The next day, as Bai Luan expected, Ratio sent a stream of messages. "Ratio, the entire space station shows no trace of independent thought. It's full of blind, personal worship of geniuses. Ratio, I suspect if the geniuses claimed 1 + 2 = 4, they would believe it without question." A certain genius who liked to bluff broke into a cold sweat. It's not that bad." "Ratio, it is bad. Ratio, the station's cult-like worship of you and Heita is extreme. It's reached the level of fanatic devotion. The last time I saw such adoration was in religious followers." what exactly have you been doing at the space station? Bai Luan's mind ran off for a second. He'd built the station, sealed the Stellaron inside it, elbowed the Doomsday Beast into a corner, recently had 3 top accounts aliases dismantled, stocked the station with hordes of wondrous items, frequently gave staff some money for new experimental equipment, and spent a long time serving as Miss Herta's assistant. Memories of past glories. No, why was he reminiscing? Professor, whether they're geniuses or ordinary people, they all need to be taught. You know that just telling them, don't blindly follow, won't work in this setting. So, Professor, teach them to think for themselves, as you taught me. Ratio, how much they learn will depend on them. They will learn. Otherwise, they'll become a disgrace to the old novices.